Get me in the mood.
It's gonna be bright, sunshiny day.
Okay. You.
It's gonna be.
And I'm your host, ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Avard here, bringing you the.
Senator, you are live. You're good to go.
All right, welcome everybody. I'm Senator Kevin Avard from Senate District 12, and today we're going to be holding a meeting of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. Now, before we get started, I'll read through the checklist to ensure that the meeting that we are holding is in compliance with the right to know law. As chair of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, I find due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to executive order 2020-04 and its extensions, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. In accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we're providing public access to the meeting by telephone, with additional access possible by video and other electronic means. We're utilizing Zoom for electronic meeting, and all members of the committee and selected legislative staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously in this meeting through this platform, and the public body has access contemporaneously to watch and listen to the meeting or Zoom or YouTube via phone by following the directions and links provided on the General Court website. We provide public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting in the Senate calendar. We're providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are any problems with access. If anyone has a problem, please email remote@ledge.state.nh.us or call 603-271-6931. In the event that the public is unable to access the meeting, it will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. And finally, let's get started by taking attendance with the roll call. With each member presented, please state where they are, and if anyone has anybody in the room with them, please let us know, which is required by right to know law. Now I will call the roll. Is Senator Guida in with us today? He's not. Senator Gray.
President, I'm here at my home in Rochester, in District 6, and I'm alone in this room.
Senator Waters.
Senator Waters at my home in Dover, alone in this room.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
Hi, Senator Perkins Quokka. I'm at my home in Portsmouth, and I am alone in this room.
And I'm Senator Kevin Avard in my office in Nashua with a couple of screaming puppies from time to time. Other than that, I am alone. So with that, we will get started and we'll open the hearing to HB 315.
All right, the prime sponsor is Representative Vos.
Welcome, Representative.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and afternoon to my honorable colleagues of the Senate. For the record, I am Representative Michael Vos. I represent Rockingham District 9, the town of Epping. I also serve as chair of the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee. And I am honored to be here today to present to you House Bill 315. This is a bill that modifies the existing RSA 53-E, which permits communities to form something called community aggregations. A community aggregation is simply a accumulation of electricity customers into a group that can then achieve lower costs for themselves by purchasing electricity in bulk. That's the simple definition of a community aggregator. Modifications that were made to RSA 253-E in 2019 added some additional language to the statute to permit an expansion of services beyond the traditional definition of community aggregation. And those additional services included things like grid modernization activities like demand response and time of use charge for electricity. And unfortunately, some of the additions that were made in 2019 led to some difficulty when the PUC attempted to try to do a rulemaking process for community aggregation. There was a disagreement amongst the various shareholders who were trying to come up with new rules in their informal rulemaking process. And it became apparent that the legislation needed some tweaking in order to make the rulemaking go forward and be possible to come up with a solution that would work for everyone. So I submitted House Bill 315 to make those modifications to the existing statute. That bill probably went too far, so it was opposed by many people who are very interested in creating community power aggregations. So we got together with a group of stakeholders and came up with an amendment to the bill that satisfies all parties. It allows the grid modernization activities that many people feel are necessary, but it also protects existing ratepayers of the electric distribution utilities. So those protections are critical in my judgment, and getting those into the bill made it possible for all parties to agree that this was a good change to the existing statute and was acceptable legislation. It passed in my committee 18-0, and then passed the full House on a voice vote. So there's virtually no opposition to this bill as it is written today. Now, some of the things that it does for the customers of electricity in New Hampshire is it provides some consumer protections, especially under the rulemaking section, which is section 10 of the legislation. And there's an important sentence in there that now says that such rules shall include, but not be limited to, rules governing the relationship between municipal and county aggregators and distribution utilities, metering, billing, access to customer data for planning and operation of aggregations, notice of the commencement or termination of aggregation services and products, and the reestablishment of a municipal or county aggregation that has substantially ceased to provide services. That's a key piece of language that was added to the bill that provides the PUC with the ability to do a rulemaking that works for everybody and that everybody can agree to. This bill also added a line in section 8 that says no customer shall be required to pay an exit fee or charge if they opt out of a community aggregation. This is an opt-in program. So once a community aggregation is accepted by a municipality, all customers in that service territory opt into the aggregation, but they can opt out if they so choose. And this language ensures that they will not be charged an exit fee if they do decide to opt out. Another significant change added to the legislation is something called a purchase of receivables program. This allows the electric utilities, distribution utilities, to purchase the receivables of a community aggregator if the aggregator chooses to allow that to happen or indicates an interest in having that happen. So this is a new program. Not all utilities necessarily will take advantage of it, but it's a program that's available should they decide to do so. So that's the essence of the bill. I'd be happy to answer any questions about it. to help you understand it, but it's a bill that's been agreed to by a significant number of folks. We actually put in quite a bit of hard work, about 8 hours of time to get the amendment hammered out that we eventually adopted for this bill. So I think it's a good bill, and I trust that you will feel the same, and I'll look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and just, kudos to you and your committee and everybody who worked on this to create such a good solution. In your testimony in the House, did you get any sense from PUC that when this passes, they'll be able to get going I know there's a lot of people who want to really move forward, and is your sense that they'll be able to move with appropriate speed on this?
Thank you for that question, Senator Waters. I think the answer is yes. I think the PUC did testify, plus the PUC was one of the stakeholders in our negotiation group. And they said that these changes to the legislation would make it possible for rulemaking to go forward fairly smoothly and quickly.
Well, again, thank you for all the good work.
And thank you, Senator.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
So next, Senator, we have Representative Mcgee.
Welcome, Representative.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Avard. And good morning, everybody on energy and natural resources. Nice to see you all again. I don't have a lot to add to the description that Chairman Vose provided for you. I think I would just say, by way of just context, it seems as though when 53E was conceived, like many bills that are complex or paving a new way, they didn't anticipate all of the issues that needed to be the issues that needed to be either defined within the RSA or eased in terms of definition, in terms of how the Public Utilities Commission would respond to this new configuration where community power aggregators would be working with customers alongside with the default providers. So what this legislation forced was that stakeholder conversation that could have happened at the PUC, but hadn't happened, but needed to happen. And so the bill coming out originally with a sort of a utility-centric perspective forced folks in the community power community to come forward and say, wait, what about this? What about that? And so, it was actually probably the best process we've seen so far this year of stakeholders doing what only they can do, which is to provide that detail that we lack when we write the legislation. So I just wanted to echo the chairman's points and say that this is a good bill and we really support it.
Thank you, Representative Senator Perkins Coker. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Representative. So I do know that the original version of this bill obviously created a lot of discussion, and it does feel like the amendment addressed a lot of that. Are there any remaining concerns on your part for the bill as amended, or do you feel like all of those sort of stakeholder points really got incorporated?
I think it was a good process. And so the folks who have the most familiarity with how the competitive markets would basically be integrated into the marketplace, they had their say. And I think, as Chairman Vose mentioned, the purchase of receivables was one of those outstanding issues that needed to be addressed. The idea of opt-in versus opt-out and how that would be characterized, and then guidance to the PUC on how they should look at that. All of that was addressed. So I think it's a great starting point. Doesn't mean there won't be more to come in the future, but I think there's no reason to hold it off now.
Okay. Thank you, Representative.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Representative.
Thank you.
Senator, that's the end of elected officials. So with your go ahead, I'm going to move to the rest of the public and city officials, and we'll institute a 3-minute limit.
You're in charge. Take it.
Alrighty. So next up, we have Mr. Clifton Belo.
Hi, Clifton.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am Assistant Mayor of the City of Lebanon, and I'm here to testify in support of House Bill 315. I worked closely with Chairman Vose and all the stakeholders to improve upon the bill as introduced, and the end result is one that everybody is supportive and is a better product. We end up with a better product all the way around. So it was really a win-win-win situation. It is virtually the same language that this committee passed as Part 5 of Senate Bill 91, with one difference. There's one word that OSL had accidentally deleted in a previous amendment that is fixed in this version. And I just would commend the bill moving ahead to the governor at the earliest possible convenience, so that we can get the rules moving forward. Because right now the PUC's kind of waiting on the enactment as well as the resolution of what exactly happens with the Department of Energy and the PUC. But that can be resolved in House Bill 2, I presume. So I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Clifton. Questions from Clifton? Seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have a Mr. Robert Hayden.
Mr. Hayden, welcome.
Hey folks, how you doing?
We're doing well.
I think I'm really just testifying in support of 315 and encouraging you to do anything possible to accelerate the process. We've been working with the city of Keene and have a plan ready for evaluation by the PUC, or it will be ready very soon. It just needs some approvals in the community. We have a lot of community support in the city of Keene and quite a bit of support in other communities around, particularly in the Monadnock region. And we would like to move forward with this. Standard Power and Good Energy both worked with the work session from the House, and think that the product is wonderful. It was a bipartisan result where everybody agreed, and it was a wonderful thing to see in this day and age that everybody agreed. So we hope that you will also agree with this passage. Have a great day. Any questions?
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, Senator, we have Joseph I'm sorry, I'm gonna butcher this. Kosonsky.
Nice try. My name is Joseph Kwasnik. And Mr. Chairman and committee, thank you for allowing me to provide some really brief testimony in support of this bill. My background is I was an environmental executive for National Grid, and was also a former chairman of the New Hampshire Electric Co-op. And I will keep this very, very brief. I'm testifying in support of the bill. And let me just say that it's my belief that municipal and county authorities will be more than capable of providing the services enunciated in this bill, at least at a level comparable with those provided by the local electric distribution company, and likely at levels superior to those distribution companies. And just let me say that I think because of the local knowledge of municipals and county government, I think they will be much more receptive and much more sensitive to the needs of electric customers in the providing of these services. And that concludes my testimony. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Questions from the committee? Is that a hang glider?
I'm sorry, that's on the website. I'm a glider pilot from Franconia.
Nice. Just admiring it, that's all.
I'll take it. I'll take anybody up, and we'll stay right side up. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Senator Waters would love to take advantage of that. He would.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next up, Senator, we have Donna Gamache.
Welcome, Donna.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. I will be very brief, and I'm sure there won't be any questions, but if there are, I brought with me Matthew Fossum, who's our key attorney, who was worked very closely as part of the stakeholders to come up with the solution on this bill. So Eversource supports House Bill 315, and we are very grateful to all of the stakeholders that worked together to come up with this final product that you have before you, which also, thank you, Senator Waters, was part of Senate Bill 91. The final product goes a long way to meet New Hampshire customers and communities' needs. We, Eversource, we have been working over the past several years with our customers in Massachusetts to ensure that they have aggregation. And we have worked with 70 different communities to get those programs on the ground and running. And in total, we have more than 1 million Eversource customers in Massachusetts that are either already engaged in or nearly engaged in aggregation programs. So for the first time in New Hampshire since aggregation has been on the books, we think that we'll start to see some of that activity in New Hampshire, and we're pleased to support some of what we're calling the sweeteners in the bill that Representative Vos walked you through, that will ensure that the aggregators that are out there working in other states, including Massachusetts, will focus on New Hampshire as well. So with that, I just wanted to thank all the stakeholders and thank you for your attention today. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Donna. Questions from the committee? Seeing none.
Next up, we have Representative Mann.
Representative, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to make a very small comment, and that is, does this sound free? No, I don't have a comment on this bill. Sorry.
Well, we thank you for your testimony.
Okay, next up, we have Matthew Fossum.
Good afternoon. I'm Matthew Fossum. I'm with Eversource. I'm here on board. I was here to help Donna Gamache if there were any questions that she couldn't answer. But as there were no questions for her, I guess there are no questions for me. And other than that, Eversource, I'll just reiterate that Eversource supports the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have David Creer.
Hi, David.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm David Creer, Director of Public Policy for the Business and Industry Association of New Hampshire. We came in a little late, but we are supportive of House Bill 315. Anything that helps move community aggregation forward would be good for smaller businesses to help them kind of procure lower energy costs if they're not maybe as sophisticated enough or big enough to warrant getting third-party supply on their own. With that, happy to take any questions, but that'd be good for me.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Okay, the last person, sir, I have signed up to speak is Mark Brown.
Who? Just kidding. Hi, Mark.
Good afternoon, Senator. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mark Brown, Executive Director, Northeast Consumer Energy Alliance. CEA is a nationwide association made up of energy consumers and producers working to advance in all of the above energy and environmental policies that will lower energy costs for everyone. We're very supportive of this bill, particularly the consumer protections referenced by Chairman Vos. Particularly the prohibition on exit fees, which will allow people who were opted into the program to opt out if they so choose. I don't want to repeat what other people have said. It's a good bill. We hope you support it. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator, that's the end of the list of signups. So if anybody else is interested in speaking on House Bill 315, if you could please virtually raise your hand now. And I'm not seeing anyone, Senator.
All right, so we'll close the hearing on HB 315 and we'll open up the hearing to HB 351.
Okay. Doesn't look as though Representative Harrington is here to introduce the bill, but I have Representative Vos and Representative Mann both with their hand raised. I'm wondering if Representative Vos.
Jenny, I think I apologize. Representative Horgan indicated that he wouldn't be able to introduce his bill. I believe Representative Vos will do that on his behalf.
Perfect.
No, we're not going to let that happen. I'm kidding. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mike. Just pulling your chain. Just.
I get it. I get it. Thank you, Senator. Representative Harrington, you'll all be distressed to learn, is in the Caribbean. And that's why he cannot introduce this bill here today. Once again, for the record, I'm Michael Vos, Representative Michael Vos. I'm from Epping, Rockingham District 9, Chair of the House Science, Technology, and Energy Committee, here to introduce House Bill 351 on behalf of Representative Harrington. This bill is a fairly short and simple bill. It has two key pieces. The first key piece specifies that the system benefits charge, which is the basic subject of this bill, should be used only to reduce the consumption of electricity and not some other form of energy. Those are the actual words of the bill. And the reason this bill was filed this way is because Representative Harrington and many of us believe that if electric customers are going to be charged the system benefits charge to increase the energy efficiency of the electricity grid, then that's what the money should be used for. It shouldn't be used for increasing the energy efficiency of non-electric parts of the spectrum. And in fact, Representative Harrington did some research during the course of the development of this bill, and he discovered that a lot of the money that's being spent on energy efficiency in the state is going for thermal projects. Those are projects designed, for example, to save home heating costs. Home installation is such a program. And he discovered that in the fourth quarter of 2019, thermal projects accounted for 9.5% of the total kilowatt hour savings from the New Hampshire Saves program, but it consumed 52% of the dollars for the program. Meanwhile, projects whose main purpose was to reduce electricity consumption accounted for 90.5% of the kilowatt hour savings while consuming 48% of the budget. So that data shows that we're spending more money, more of the money collected from the system benefits charge on thermal projects, even though it accounts for a relatively small percentage of the savings for reducing electric consumption, than we're spending on energy efficiency for the grid, the electricity system itself. And so that's why Representative Harrington decided to submit this bill, or one of the reasons. That's one of the key components of the bill. The other key component is simply a deletion from the existing statute. He deleted a exemption or an exception to the requirement that the New Hampshire General Court approve increases or decreases, changes basically to the system benefits charge. There was an exception that had been added to statute back in 2017, I believe it was, that exempted the energy efficiency resource standard framework that had been established at the Public Utilities Commission to put into place changes for the system benefits charge. So that's the second portion of this bill, is it deletes that exemption or exception from statute. So that going forward, should this bill be passed, any changes to the system benefits charge would have to be authorized by and or approved by the general court or its fiscal committee. That's essentially what the bill does. So why does the bill do these things? Would be the important question that it would immediately occur to anyone. So it's pretty obvious, I think, from the statistics I cited earlier, that if we're going to charge electricity customers for energy efficiency, it should be to improve the energy efficiency of the use of electricity. I think that's fairly straightforward. The second piece is removing the exemption or exception of the Energy Efficiency Resource Standard framework as a exception from the existing statute. Today, the price of electricity is determined by the Public Utilities Commission through a sophisticated and complex process. It's called rate setting, and it has many components. And of course, a vital component of that rate setting is defined as the rate per kilowatt hour, the final price of the electricity that a customer will pay. Electricity sales really can't happen without that unit cost. But what's interesting about that is that the system benefits charge is not part of the rate charged for electricity. It's an added charge that is used to pay for energy efficiency. And today, the system benefits charge changes are the result of the application of a standard called the Energy Efficiency Resource Standard. This was a standard that was adopted in 2016. And since 2017, a subcommittee of an entity called the Energy Efficiency and Sustainable Energy Board, which was created by legislation in 2008, has used the EERS framework to determine the cost to be raised by the system benefits charge. And it works with a group of stakeholders to arrive at a settlement agreement for that 3-year plan to achieve energy efficiency goals using that standard. It then submits the settlement agreement to the PUC that reviews the plan in a docket and either approves or disapproves of the plan. There is currently an open docket for the plan that was submitted for the years 2021, 2022, and 2023. That plan is still pending. The settlement agreement that was proposed is still pending at the PUC. That current plan would raise the system benefits charge, which currently generates about $62 million or did in 2020, would raise that cost by something like $280 million by 2023. So it's an expensive plan. And because the system benefits charge is a separate charge from electricity, and it's mandated by the legislature, many people in the legislature feel that this charge should be governed, approved, changes to this charge should be approved by the legislature. The legislature is the only entity that can essentially represent the public in this situation. Now, I know the consumer advocate will argue that he thinks it's his job to represent the public, but he does so from a different perspective, I think, than the average citizen on the street. And so that's why we feel that the legislature, which is elected by the people of the state, has an obligation to exercise its constitutional obligation to sanction such added charges. It has to provide oversight of this legislatively mandated extra charge on people's electric bills. That's the rationale behind this legislation. And I'm not going to say any more about it at this time, but I will look forward to answering your questions about it. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Questions from the committee? Senator Waters.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for introducing the bill. And, you know, for those who've been around for a while, the whole restructuring debate and, you know, how to maintain public good out of that and setting up a lot of these programs was an interesting time in New Hampshire's energy history for sure. And I mean, would it be fair to say that, you know, one of the things that the system benefit charge was trying to look at is, I mean, yes, the big numbers and the expense of this and rates and so on, but also what happens in the individual household of a low-income person about how they're trying to juggle their bills, and if they're not heating with electricity and they're heating with another source, but they're trying to figure out which bills they're going to be able to pay and so on. That there was a kind of a sense of interconnection there. But, you know, I mean, in light of your arguments, if we're moving towards much more heating and energy provision by electricity because of new sources coming on board, then would it be your sense that if this fund was used for such things as solar installation or for, you know, low-income folks or for heat pumps, you know, related to electricity, that would be that might be a very good way to go?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. Well, I think the legislation that establishes the system benefits charge said specifically that the charge is to provide benefits as approved by regulators that can include programs for low-income customers, and it can include programs for energy efficiency. It can also fund the electric utility industry's share of commission expenses and support research and development and other investments in commercialization strategies, reading from the legislation. So there's a variety of things it can be used for, provided that they're approved by regulators. So if you're talking about the future, I guess the answer to your question would be yes. I would think that the system benefits charge, as long as it was making the electric system more energy efficient, its funds could be used for that purpose.
I
Does that answer your
guess,
question, Senator?
yeah, if I could follow up. I mean, and thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. I guess that what I'm trying to circle around to is that you do have the language here, reduce the consumption of electricity. And, you know, so I was just thinking that in some ways, if it turns out that electricity is going to be much cheaper than other sources of energy, that maybe, you know, the efforts to help folks shift to electric sources of heat, for example, might be a good idea, but under this language, because you have the word reduce exclusively, that might not be possible.
Thank you for the question. I see where you're going here. You're concerned about the language that said whose main purpose is to reduce the consumption of electricity. Well, what that language means in the context of this legislation is that the overall goal of the system benefits charge and the energy efficiency programs that it supports is to reduce consumption. Now, if we add new types of consumption, that would not necessarily be in conflict with the goal to reduce the consumption of existing products. For example, I just bought a new refrigerator, and it's much quieter and uses less electricity than my old refrigerator. That reduces the consumption of electricity at my house. But if I add a heat pump, that'll increase the consumption of electricity. But that's not directly related to the energy efficiency of the electricity system. That would make my house maybe more energy efficient overall, but it doesn't necessarily improve the efficiency of the electricity system.
It's going to be very complicated. Thank you. Thanks for your answer.
Thank you.
Well said. Any further questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Representative. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we're going to move to D. Maurice Crease.
Welcome, consumer advocate.
Good afternoon, everybody. You all can hear me, I presume.
No. I'm kidding. Oh,
Sorry about
I've got
that.
a really bad sense of humor today. I'm sorry. Yes, I can hear you.
In any event, good afternoon, Senators. It's great to be with all of you. I am Don Crease, the state's consumer advocate. By statute, my office and I represent the interests of residential utility customers before the PUC and all sorts of other places around the planet, including here. And I, as most of you probably know, have submitted written testimony. And I apologize for needing to run off rather quickly to my advisory board meeting, which starts in a few minutes. But I wanted to register my opposition to the bill. And I guess by way of describing that opposition briefly, let me say that I share the objective of Chairman Vose and several of his colleagues in the other body of clarifying what it is that the general court expects by way of the system benefits charge and energy efficiency. I think that right now there's a dearth of legislative guidance about what is and what isn't appropriate with respect to ratepayer funded energy efficiency. And I think it would be a very good idea for the legislature to set itself to the task of providing more guidance than currently exists, because there's precious little in the statute books now beyond some references to what a system benefits charge does. And Representative Vose just quoted that language to you. The way this sort of thing is supposed to work is that the general court could decide for itself questions like what rates customers should pay for their utility service. But rather than do that itself, it creates administrative agencies like the Public Utilities Commission, and it gives the agency instructions and guidance, and then the agency makes its decisions, and the people who need to be bound by those decisions can then act on them. What isn't supposed to happen, and what I think is inconsistent with the system of government that both the framers of the federal and the state constitutions created, is for the legislature to say, okay, we're going to create an administrative agency. We're going to tell that administrative agency to make certain decisions, like what should the system benefits charge on people's electric bills be. And then, though, if the people who need to rely on that decision want to make it stick, then they have to come back to the legislature and get the legislature to bless it. That is not the way this is supposed to work. And I actually think requiring that kind of circling back to the legislature raises constitutional issues that we will have to raise in appropriate forums in the event that a bill like this becomes law. So my pitch to the commission is to re-refer this bill. There is a bill that deals with some of the same issues, House Bill, I think it's 549, if I'm remembering the number correctly, that Representative Vose sponsored. That bill's been retained by the Science, Tech, and Energy Committee and the other body, and I think that we can spend the next several months having some very fruitful discussions about what the best way to articulate reasonable legislative standards for ratepayer-funded energy efficiency really should be. Representative Vose mentioned the consumer advocate, and I first of all, you should remember that my office represents the interests of only residential customers, not all customers. So I do not pretend to advocate on behalf of the commercial and industrial sectors. But even as to the residential sector, whose interests we're charged with protecting, we're merely advocates, and we do not posit ourselves as an alternative to the general court when it comes to wisdom and insight about what the public interest requires. That's definitely your job, and my job is to take your instructions, not give anybody instructions. So with that, I think I'm going to stop talking, and thank you for listening to my testimony. And of course, I would welcome any questions.
Thank you, Don. Questions from the committee? Senator Waters.
Thanks for your testimony, Don. Do you have any thoughts on the other point about what the bill does?
Yes, thank you for asking me that question, Senator. If the general court were to declare that the system benefits charge can only pay for electric savings, I think that would have an unfortunate result of leaving a significant amount of cost-effective energy efficiency on the table. That said, I have to concede there is a certain logic to saying that we only want people to pay via their electric bills for energy efficiency that relates to the use of electricity. So I think it's a judgment call for the legislature to make, and I apologize for equivocating, but I see both sides of the argument. I, as most everybody knows, am a fan of being as aggressive as we possibly can about cost-effective energy efficiency. So I myself don't see the need for that kind of restriction, but I understand the proponent's logic in asking the general court to adopt it.
If I may follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Follow up.
So I don't know if you heard my, line of questioning to the chairman earlier, but I was wondering whether under the structure of the system benefits charge, it would be possible to, after reduce, have some kind of phrase like, or encourage investment in energy provided by renewable sources.
If the question is, would that be appropriate or permissible?
Yeah.
It would be appropriate and it would be permissible. As Representative Vose mentioned to you, it's a slightly different policy imperative that says that we want to encourage more use of electricity by getting people to transition away from burning fossil fuels and consuming electricity in order to heat their homes. But there are good public policy reasons to do that, and it's certainly a reasonable use of the system benefits charge.
Thank you.
Further questions? I have one, just with regards to giving the authority for the PUC to with this benefit system charge for it to go back to the general court. You said that it might have a constitutional drawback, or there might be some constitutional issues that are in conflict. Could you specify exactly how that works, or where the conflict would rise?
Well, sure. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court has said in a case called INS versus Chadha, which was decided way back in 1983, that a legislative veto of administrative agency decisions is unconstitutional under the federal constitution. Now here, of course, we'd be talking about the state constitution, but the state constitution's framework for how government works is essentially identical to the federal model. And I think that this provision that requires the SBC increases to be circled back to the legislature looks a lot like the kind of legislative veto that the Supreme Court was unhappy with in the Chadha case back in 1983.
Thank you. Further questions from the committee? We really appreciate your testimony. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, Senator, we have Representative John Mann.
Welcome back, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, on this recent discussion, I think that and I'm basically urging ITL on the bill. I think it has no real merit. The issue about thermal energy efficiency versus electric. The only way you can reduce electricity spent to heat the house is to insulate it. You can't reduce electricity in any significant way otherwise. And by the way, that also insulating a house also reduces your electric costs in the summertime for air conditioning and so on. So I think it's kind of a strange thing to request it or to demand that it must only deal with electric consumption. I think of people signing affidavits saying, I really wanted to reduce electricity in the heating of this house, but by accident, we also reduced the cost of heating oil. So that's how I think at that point. I also have a second point to make about the idea of energy efficiency for heating houses, in the sense that, and we all know part of the purpose of that is to reduce fossil fuel burning. And we also know it helps the homeowner in terms of reducing bills. But it turns out that once you insulate a house, and once you make a house energy efficiency from the thermal point of view, it stays that way for years and years. And if you have a steady program, annual, every year, do energy efficiency work on a, say, 200 houses or 500 houses, you generate a savings stream, because once that set of houses is insulated, there's a certain amount of saving money that is not sent to the oil companies to pay for fuel. It stays in the New Hampshire economy. And then the following year, you do another set of energy efficiency work and you get another savings stream. It's like Dunkin' Donuts opening up a new donut shop every year. You get very wealthy that way. We can save a lot of money, and a lot of money that's sent by buying fuels today, by implementing thermal energy efficiency for the purpose of reducing electricity costs, or whatever purpose we want to get behind. I mean, or any excuse, as far as I'm concerned, for doing energy efficiency houses for houses is valid. When you take all those savings together, and I did a little analysis of this, what you get is an accelerating savings. In other words, the first year you save just the 1 year's worth of work. Second year, you save that first year's work produces a second year of savings, and your new work produces a year of savings. So now you go from 1 to 3. And then when you go to a third year, it comes up to 6 units of savings out of 3 years worth of work, and so on. The numbers go up, 1, 3, 6, 10, 15, 21, 28, things like that. It's accelerating, and it's a parabola, x squared minus 1 divided by 2. So that's a huge amount of money in just a few years. It really is. And we're throwing all that money away. I think we're doing damage to our economy. I think this is really dumb. Well, it's dumb if we look at this situation and analyze it. And if I'm right, it would be dumb to continue to simply send money out for fuel when we can insulate the houses with investments and make permanent improvements that lasts forever, basically, for the life of the house, of each house. So this is what we should do. That's basically my bottom line, that this, I feel this bill has a lot of possible negative impact, and I think it should be ITL. Thanks very much.
Thank you, John. Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next up, Senator, we have Representative Kat Mcgee.
Welcome back, Representative.
Thank you, Senator, and members of the committee. Good to speak with you yet again. A lot has been said already on House Bill 351. I agree with Representative Mann and the consumer advocate. I would like to see an ITL on House Bill 351. I feel that it's not ready for prime time. It seeks to fix something that isn't broken. And in some cases, it goes beyond that to basically prevent something from working that is working. So I think with what's already been said about, thermal savings, whether the statute should be changed to say electricity and not other forms of energy, I think that the confusion in the conversation often comes down to what is the goal right? What is it that we're trying to achieve? Are we trying to achieve electricity savings? Are we trying to lower energy costs? Are we trying to lower emissions? Are we trying to lower demand? So it's a complex conversation to have. But this particular bill, my main concern, and I spoke against it on the House floor, was that I think the system benefits charge was put into the statute originally to do exactly what it says, to provide system benefits. And in fact, it's a regulatory requirement that the Public Utilities Commission ensures that energy efficiency programs, regardless of what they're funding, like New Hampshire Saves, provide a benefit across ratepayers, right? So everybody is deriving a benefit. And these programs are proven to generate several times the money spent on them. And energy efficiency is a really good deal, and our constituents should be able to count on the fact that we don't undermine working programs upon which they rely. Energy efficiency improvements result in permanent reductions in fuel demand and electricity costs, and therefore they help the state to improve its carbon footprint while lowering energy outlay. HB 351 says that the authority to set the system benefits charge, which is an authority granted to the Public Utilities Commission by the legislature, needs to be sent back to the House for an up or down vote, which I don't know how that would happen in the House, because anything that comes to the House in terms of a bill has to go to both sides of the House. So it would have to be a bill that would go through the entire process and be signed into law in order for us to actually provide that authority, or go to the fiscal committee. And it doesn't really pick one, and it doesn't really provide clarity on what it is that it's asking for. It just simply says the PUC and the entities derived thereof, like the Easy Board, which Chairman Vose and I are both new members of the Easy Board now, that stakeholder group that's put in place to look at energy efficiency programs and the administration of the energy efficiency resource standards, that those stakeholder groups that actually analyze all the details that go into trying to figure out correct rate setting, that we are somehow going to take it back under the legislature because we have the power of the purse and make those decisions, I would think, in a political way, right? I would think that we don't have the same time or resources or stakeholder groups that give us all the information we would need to file a bill to authorize funding for energy efficiency. It really, what this does is it puts sand in the gears of an energy efficiency program that's actually working for the people of New Hampshire. And the last thing I'll say is that Chairman Vose referred to the pending energy efficiency plan, the triennium energy efficiency plan that's pending for 2021 to 2023 over at the Public Utilities Commission today. And that plan was completed in December, and it was supposed to be approved in January. And I was in a meeting recently with the utilities where they said it's starting to kind of mess up their planning because they were expecting these funds and these programs to be available. The fact that it hasn't moved forward is an issue. That plan was created amongst all the stakeholders, including the utilities. So it was a long process that also included hiring a consultant. And these are all things that the legislature doesn't have at its disposal. So the Public Utilities Commission, we talk about it in a very offhanded way, but the work that they do there is the work that we expect them to do in order to decide what's the best way for this money to go. And that particular plan that is still being held up by legislation like HB 351, that plan was said to have a $1.3 billion stimulus on the New Hampshire economy over the 3 years of the plan being implemented. And so many of us who were watching that plan and waiting for it to come out thought, in a post-COVID economy, this is just the kind of thing that we should be investing in. So I won't take any more of your time. Obviously, I have a lot of thoughts around this bill and also around energy efficiency. And so if you have any other questions, I will attempt to answer them, but I would very much ask you to consider ITLing this bill. It's just not ready for prime time, and it's not helping anything, in my opinion.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee?
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Chairman,
Okay. Senator.
if I may. Thank you. So Representative, on that question of the either or approval, was there any discussion in the hearing in the House about, well, what would happen if the fiscal committee said yes and the legislature said no? I mean, I suppose the both have authority. So I'm just wondering what the, you know, I'm kind of flummoxed in terms of what would happen if one group said yes, the other said no.
Yeah, I don't think that particular question came up. I think the fact that both are inserted in there shows that we haven't clearly defined what it is we're trying to achieve or what's the best way to achieve it. I think it was the consumer advocate who actually brought up in a Power to the People, he does a regular column, the concept that if it came back to the House, there's no way for the House to actually provide that authority other than to do legislation, right? And so the fiscal committee was sort of thrown in there as additional language, and it said either or, but it just isn't clear. It isn't clear how the authority would be provided, or that the understanding necessary to provide reasonable authority resides in either of those bodies at this point, because we've delegated that authority to people who are working on these issues all day long.
Thank you.
Questions? You did say something about the $1.3 billion of stimulus being, if I heard you correctly, did you say 351 is holding that up? Or did I understand?
There were a couple of bills that went through the House that referred to both the energy efficiency resource standards and the triennium energy efficiency plan. I believe 351 has language in it that says that during a state of emergency, we shouldn't be spending money on energy efficiency. We've got a couple of bills that actually, it's like any bills that come up in the House, the people who are affected by them look at that legislation and say, hey, if that goes through, this stuff that we're doing is going to be affected. And I think that's part of what happened. I mean, there were a couple of other things that also happened. A letter went over to the PUC saying maybe because of the COVID economy, we shouldn't be going into this plan. I think Chairman Bose mentioned the fact that the agreement between the utilities and the other stakeholders for how the next 3-year plan was going to go forward and be funded was that the funding would increase. So there was an effort to do more. And I think that there was a pushback against that as well. But they did bring in a consultant who did the calculations in terms of what the return on the investment would be. And that was where they came up with that 1.3 billion in stimulus from the effects of having energy efficiency dollars available to help people with their projects.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Representative.
Thank you.
Next up, Senator, we have Representative Nodder.
Representative Nodder, welcome.
Hi, I'm the sponsor of the House Bill 373. But I can say that I do support the two bills that you just had hearings on. And you can hear me, right?
I can hear you, yes, and thank you. So anything that you want to add to 351 right now?
I support the bill.
Okay.
And whatever Chairman Bose said, I agree with him 100%.
Perfect. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Representative Nodder.
All right, Senator, that brings us to the end of elected officials. So we're going to move to the public and to the 3-minute time limit. We're going to start with Huck Montgomery.
Welcome, Huck.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. Huck Montgomery, I'm here on behalf of Liberty Utilities. As you all know, Liberty is the largest of our natural gas service providers in New Hampshire, and also the electric company in the Salem area and the Upper Valley area. So we would urge you to find House Bill 351 inexpedient to legislate, because we believe in the energy efficiency resource standard proposal that's before the commission today. We stand by that good work. As it's been pointed out by several other folks who have testified earlier today, all of the energy efficiency programming through the New Hampshire SAVE program, of which Liberty, along with the other utilities, are the administrators, must be found to be cost effective, meaning you get more than $1 worth of value out of every dollar you put into it. And so a lot of work went into the energy efficiency resource standard planning process that they got that 2021-2023 triennial plan put together and put before the commission. And I think there's a key thing that has to be considered here that hasn't been talked about yet. I just really want to ask everybody to focus on this issue, which is that current law actually does provide that in the future, all energy efficiency or any other increases to the SBC must go to the legislature or to the fiscal committee. That is in current law, all future ones. But the 21 to 23 triennial plan was developed under under existing law, which provides that it is not subject to that legislative approval. So probably 18 months of work on behalf of the energy efficiency teams from the utilities and all of the stakeholders for the EASY board and everybody that cares about getting this done right, created this plan that would save $200 million worth of energy for New Hampshire's economy over the life of these programs. $200 million of money for our economy. That's the payoff of this investment. And the plan was created under the expectation that this triennial plan, the 21-23 plan that's before the commission today, would be approved by the commission and the commission alone, and that all future SBC increases related to this or anything else would have to go to the legislature. So certainly from, in terms of the planning process that went into it and the expectations on behalf of the program administrators and our commitment to providing customers with the energy efficiency services that they want, we really think it's unfair to those customers ultimately who are expressing very high demand for these services today. And if this bill were to pass and the legislature were to vote not to implement the triennial plan that's before the commission today, which, clearly that would be the point of the bill, it's going to result in customers who want energy efficiency services that are going to be cost effective, net positive from a cost standpoint, to not be able to get them. And we think that is reason enough for you to consider this bill to be inexpedient to legislate and stick with the current law that we have, which we think is good, which does, again, to just draw a triple line underneath this. Current law provides that future SBC increases must go to the legislature. In fact, you can see that's in the bill as it's redlined today, the marked out part starting on line 15 of House Bill 351. You can see what the existing law says, which is that all future SBC increases do have to go to the legislature, meaning that this bill itself only applies to the one that is already before the commission that was developed under the expectation that it was not going to have to go to the legislature. So that is my testimony. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Huck. The questions from the committee. I do have one. I thought maybe I misunderstood, but when Chairman Bose was speaking, he said that there was going to be an additional cost. There's 62 million in cost, and there would be an additional 200 million in cost due to the systems benefits charge. You're saying there's 200 million in potential savings.
That's right. But under what's called the Granite State test, which is the sort of technical test that that the PUC uses to assess the effectiveness of these programs. Again, by law, the programs must generate more in savings than they cost. So the sticker price, that's like investing in, whatever an investment may be. If you're going to buy 100 shares and you know that it's going to appreciate by a certain percentage, you look to calculate what the profit was going to be, not what you spent on the investment. So if you look holistically at the value of the investment that's being made under this energy efficiency program, just the electric programs alone are going to save the New Hampshire economy $200 million.
And where do we find this metric? Where do we get this information specifically that says we're going to save 200 versus it's going to cost us 200 million?
Well, it's in I can get it for you, and I will be happy to run that down through our energy efficiency team. It's posted publicly on the commission's docket. regarding the energy efficiency resource standard. So that all of that work, which is really, dense spreadsheets that shows how we got there, and the reports that demonstrate that it met the test, and sort of the math that went into doing that, is all found on the commission's website, in the docket book under this docket.
So if the public wants to find it, it's readily available. Right?
It's publicly available. It's readily available. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Senator Waters.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Huck, for your testimony. So I just wanted to get your take on that issue about main purpose is to reduce the consumption of electricity language. I note that in the existing statute, it says that the use of distribution system may be used to fund public benefits related to the provision of electricity, which is quite broad. And then the existing language says that the benefits may include programs for income customers, again, very broad. But when we get to energy efficiency programs, and then a new language's main purpose is to reduce the consumption of electricity. My question there is, that we have potentially programs that can help people, such as battery storage, or community solar for low-income folks, that essentially, you might consider it efficiency because, like with batteries particularly, it's shifting people to, they might be able to avoid peak demand charges, but they're still using about the same amount of electricity. So I guess I'm trying to struggle with, do you see any kind of potential conflicts as we move towards greater electrification of greater supply of electricity to deal with various needs such as heating, that language about reduce might create some problems?
Yeah, I understand your point. I think there are two things that are that I might be able to offer something interesting about on this. And I think you're right, but also, the language about the main purpose to reduce consumption of electricity, whether or not that's necessary language and ought to be included in law. Again, if this bill were not to pass, all future SBC increases are still going to go to the legislature or to fiscal for their approval. So further stipulations on what they should or shouldn't be, what that should or shouldn't be, those costs should or shouldn't be going to, I don't really know if it matters, right? Because all of the future SBC increases are going to have to be approved by the legislature anyway under current law. But further, I would just suggest that, and I think the idea of, non-electric programs for weatherization, for example, being funded in part by the SBC, when that's, potentially going to reduce heating fuel use and not electricity use. Nonetheless, even in that case, every program on its own, not just all the programs in aggregate, but every program on their own have to meet this granite state test for cost effectiveness. So this is according to my energy efficiency team at Liberty that works on these issues and develops our EERS proposals and administers these. And so this isn't just speculative. But it really is specifically defined in law and in practice how they develop these programs, that taking that money from weatherization and putting it into the particular program, taking the SBC money and putting it into the particular program, whether that's weatherization or whatever it is going to save all New Hampshire energy customers more than it's put into it. So I understand that, electric customers, in theory, you want electric customers to pay for electricity savings. But if the end result is that investment pays off for that customer and for all customers, which is what is required under the law, we think that that's a good standard, and that standard ought to remain in place moving forward. And again, we find that SB 351 would really substantially change that framework and result in more customers who want to access cost-effective renewable or energy efficiency services be unable to do so.
So Huck, with regards to the, I think Chairman Bose said that there's a savings of 7% versus the cost of 53%. Can you clarify that at all?
I'm not actually sure, Mr. Chairman, what that's in reference to, but what I would be happy to do is to talk to our energy efficiency team and get a little bit more precise information about Liberty's and the overall utility proposal and what the cost benefit is, and exactly obviously a couple different ways to think about that and how to measure it. But there, again, by law, the programs have to result in more savings for everybody than they cost, and that's the grant. It's actually a really rigorous test, this Granite State test, more so than many states' energy efficiency programs. And so I look forward to providing you with a little bit more information. Again, not exactly familiar with what Chairman Bose is talking about in terms of those percentages. I'm sorry.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none. And before we go any further, I just want to let you know there is a 3-minute timeline as far as testimony. However, if the senators want to ask more and grant you more time by asking you questions, that's where you're invited to continue on. But frankly, if you're not interesting, we're not going to ask you any questions.
Hope I was interesting, sir. Thank
Yes,
you.
you were very interesting. So thank you very much. And this is for people who want to testify. So try not to drag it on. Just get to your point, and then hopefully we'll ask you some questions if it's a salient point. So with that, Jen, thank you.
Next up, Senator, we have Ray Burke.
Welcome, Ray.
Good afternoon, Chairman Avard and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Ray Burke, and I'm an attorney with New Hampshire Legal Assistance. And I'm here to testify against HB 351 and encourage the committee to recommend the bill inexpedient to legislate. For the record, NHLA is a statewide nonprofit law firm. Our attorneys and paralegals represent low-income and elderly clients throughout the state, including on behalf of low-income ratepayers before the New Hampshire Public Utilities Commission. And I'd like to just highlight a few things. We'll be submitting some written testimony as well, but just want to say that we support many of the comments that were already made against the bill, including those by the consumer advocate and the comments you just heard from Liberty Utilities, especially with regard to the key point that the energy efficiency programs, including the low-income energy efficiency program, are cost effective, which means they must save more electricity or natural gas than it costs to implement the measures. And the key point that legislative approval is already required for the next 3-year plan. And I want to highlight why this this bill is potentially harmful for the low-income program. There is a long waiting list currently for the low-income program. There's a lot of need out there. I don't have the most up-to-date numbers, but the last time I think the stakeholders looked at this, there were about 8,000 households who were eligible for the low-income energy efficiency program and were on the waiting list to potentially be served. And the concern is that this bill would cause uncertainty and delay, not only for implementing this current 3-year plan, but also in the long term. I think it might have been Representative Mcgee who highlighted that this bill creates a level of uncertainty because what happens if the fiscal committee authorizes an increase to the SBC, but there's a bill pending that would reject that increase? Is it the first to act that wins, or would the PUC and the utilities and stakeholders have to wait for a pending bill to work its way through the legislative process, see if if it passes, the governor were to sign it or veto it, and then the legislature were to overcome a veto? It creates a lot of uncertainty about when the programs, including the low-income program, could move forward. And we've already seen, as some have noted before me, the effects of the current delay, which obviously, I'm not sure how much, I don't have any knowledge as to how much this pending bill has caused that delay. But what we do know is we're already 4 months into 2021, and the utilities recently filed a letter with the commission about the impacts of further delays, which include, noted in the letter, were strains on an already inadequate workforce that's needed to complete the low-income energy efficiency measures and installations. Some utilities have already temporarily paused installation of low-income energy efficiency measures because of this uncertainty.
I'm sorry, but your 3 minutes has expired.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to take any questions. And as I said, I'll be submitting written testimony. that will elaborate.
Thank you, Ray. Just for, when people are listening in on these Zooms, we're assuming that they know what we know, or that they're caught up to speed. So, I just want them to understand. So when you say low income, there's 8,000 homes that are waiting. What are they waiting for specifically?
So these are homes that are income eligible for the low income weatherization program. And so, they could potentially be served and receive energy efficiency measures, but they can't be served because there's not enough funding and workforce to serve everyone all at once. And so homes, when they come off the waiting list, the utilities working with the community action agencies will do an audit to determine what energy efficiency measures might be possible. In part, one of the things they are looking at is the cost effectiveness of the measures. And then based on that screening process, they may be eligible for a full, weatherization services or some replacement of some appliances that are more energy efficient. But they go through that cost effectiveness analysis to determine whether the investments will ultimately save that in particular household energy costs. And ultimately, there's an impact that has on overall energy costs for all of New Hampshire ratepayers.
So does that apply to renters as well?
Yes, the program is open to renters and homeowners.
So overall, it lowers their cost in energy by coming into a particular home and saying, okay, we know you can't afford this, so we're going to provide you with some insulation or an appliance that may be a little bit more cost effective, and that saves everybody money.
Yes, yeah, and there's some rules around all of that, as far as the level of rebates for a different type of measure, based on how it screens and what might be needed. But generally, I think, yes, that accurately summarizes.
Okay. Just for the public, because they're watching and, we just assume that they know what we're talking about, but this gives a little bit more understanding. Any other questions from the committee for Ray? Seeing none. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Gregory Moore.
Gregory Moore. Welcome, Gregory Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A pleasure as always, and to the members of the committee. My name is Greg Moore, and I am the State Director with Americans for Prosperity here in New Hampshire, testifying today in support of House Bill 351. I've had a lot of history with this. Certainly when I was serving as a policy director and then chief of staff of the House, we certainly were working through the initial implementation of the Easy Board. That was still getting off the floor at that point. We support this bill for two primary points. The first is transparency, and the second one is about accountability. The first measure of this to ensure that charges to your electricity bills are used to improve electricity efficiency and not efficiency for non-electric purposes, to ensure that the people who are paying the costs are seeing the direct benefit of those costs that are placed on their bill. The second piece has to do with a measure of accountability. Frankly, as someone who's worked at the legislative branch at the federal level and as a director at the Department of Health and Human Services here at the state level and then working for the state legislature, one of the things I treasure about the way New Hampshire does business is that we do not abdicate the responsibility from the legislative branch. Too often that happens at the federal level, but here in New Hampshire, we have retained that authority with the legislative branch. Certainly, it was a pain in the neck when I was working at Health and Human Services, and we would have provisions to come to fiscal with anything before we implemented them. Certainly did not enjoy that at the time, but fundamentally, here in New Hampshire, we think that the decisions should be made by people who are actually elected by the citizens. And that's what this bill does. It ensures that it has that provision built in. And I would say to the consumer advocate's question about constitutionality, certainly we have done this in numerous cases. I can tell you firsthand from my time at HHS in numerous cases where we have put provisions in the statute that require a last check-in with either fiscal or jail car before any changes can be implemented. I do think I want to spend a little bit of time talking about how we got here. So the initial change requiring legislative approval was placed in law in 2018. Then the legislation you see is being struck was added in the budget trailer bill in 2019. So this bill would take us back to 2018. for the original intent of that legislation. I do think it is appropriate to add the fiscal committee and as well as the general court. The general court presumably would require a joint resolution between the House and the Senate. Frankly, that is much less wieldy than actually getting approval from the fiscal committee, which can be done at any time, particularly when the legislature is out of session. So I think that adding a provision for the fiscal committee to the law is a wise one and would add benefit as well. So with that, I know you're way behind, so I'll end my testimony there, but I'd be happy to take any questions from the committee.
Any questions for Gregory Moore? Thank you for your testimony. I appreciate it. Let's see, next.
And next up, we have Susan Richmond.
Yes, hi, thank you. I'm Susan Richmond. I live in Durham. I'm a public school teacher, so I hope I am not naive in my trying to understand energy issues. So first of all, New Hampshire Saves, as we heard, is a really popular program. It's got a waiting list. It's making a difference in the lives of people. And we're wondering if instead, if we go just to allowing people to benefit with their electricity, solar panels, heat pumps, those are things that only wealthier citizens can invest in, as opposed to some of the insulation of a house that go towards improving thermal. A lot of those help people that are on a pretty tight budget. So I think that this bill might be skewed against the needs of less wealthy people, although I do admit that, or I want to note that New Hampshire Saves has done a lot for industry as well in helping large companies save on money. Also, in figuring out how much does it cost, what is the benefit, is that more electric, is that more towards fossil fuel? There are also huge externalized costs from fossil fuels, that fossil fuels harm our health, they hurt our property. You can't draw a nice straight line that this particular home use of heat has helped to increase flooding on coastal properties. But I think that if we're looking at big societal picture of what the cost versus the benefit is, you have to take into account that externalized cost, and that diminishing carbon emissions through efficiency can, the energy efficiency can diminish carbon emissions by as much as 40%. That is, if we're looking at the nation and diminishing our carbon footprint, energy efficiency is a low-hanging fruit. I too question the constitutionality of legislature directing an executive board. And I specifically wanted to say that the PUC commissioners are there for 6 years. Stakeholders know the industry versus legislators are more susceptible to political winds. They are voted on every 2 years. I think that's very rough on the business community to make decisions on something that could be changed every 2 years, that something that comes from the PUC you can hope is there for a longer time. Final question, big question, is I just wonder about New Hampshire's history of protecting the interests of fossil fuel companies. This year's legislature has voted down lots of legislation to decrease carbon emissions, advanced legislation to increase dependence on fossil fuels. For the last 5 years, the governor has a history of vetoing bills that would have diminished carbon emissions. The PUC's triennial energy efficiency plan, people have noted, has been stalled for 1/3 of a year now. So I would like to know what interests, or perhaps whose interests, are vested in protecting out-of-state fossil fuel industries. So those are some things that I think other people didn't say, but otherwise I am in agreement with what Huck Montgomery and Donald Creer and others have said today. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Okay, next up we have Ethan Cole.
Welcome, Ethan.
Hi, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So thank you for your time today. My name is Ethan Cole. I'm the owner of Earthshare Construction. We're a small contracting company based in Lebanon, New Hampshire. We're a general contractor. We do construction, new construction, remodeling, and an increasing amount of weatherization. New Hampshire Saves has been a great program to work with. We are one of the home performance contractors working with a few of the utilities involved in the program. We're opposed to HB 351. New Hampshire Saves is a program that it's good for New Hampshire. It's working great as it currently stands. It's good for the residents, businesses, our economy, and our future. And for those that want to adjust the program, I would ask, what is the long-term vision for New Hampshire's energy future? A lot of good points have been made here today, and I think I'm going to echo some of those, but a little bit about us. We've been working with New Hampshire Saves for about 5 years. We have 10 employees at various stages of their career. Some of them have families, and we keep them busy full-time year-round. We also engage a network of subcontractors to complete work within New Hampshire Saves program. The demand for the program is really strong, and in recent years it's growing. It makes life better for New Hampshire residents it serves, and anyone can apply to take advantage of the programs. Every program, every time we do a project, we do look at electricity opportunities for electricity use reduction. As stated, the energy burden is hardest upon New Hampshire residents who have lower incomes. The program makes energy costs more affordable and manageable for New Hampshire residents, but it also makes New Hampshire homes healthier to live in, more durable over time, and more comfortable and pleasant to live in. Energy costs on traditional fuels like oil, those go to out-of-state corporations. Investments in weatherization support New Hampshire's economy, create jobs. And when you choose to engage in a weatherization project, people are making an investment in their home and an investment in the future of New Hampshire. These are good jobs. And as New Hampshire Saves currently stands, it's an investment in our state. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Ethan.
Thank you.
Sub-Senator, we have Kate Peters.
Welcome, Kate.
Hello, thank you for having me today. I'm Kate Peters. I'm from Eversource. I'm the manager of our energy efficiency programs here in the state, supporting Donna Gamache to provide just some background information from our perspective on this bill. First of all, regarding the legislative approval of the SBC, I think our main concern is understanding the process and the potential for delays and complications in the process. We would very much like to understand the legislative policy priorities and direction that you would like us to follow. It makes the most sense to us to be able to incorporate those things while we're doing our planning, rather than creating a plan and then coming to you and perhaps getting different direction than we thought we might need, and kind of creating a lot of looping of the process, for lack of a better word. And so I'm hoping the committee can take that into account. The more direction we can get ahead of time as to what you want to achieve and what you would approve, the better that we can incorporate that into our plans and communicate in a really streamlined and effective way to our customers and our contractors about what we're going to offer. The second piece of the bill about the fuel neutral or non-electric savings, just a few points of clarity. There are 2 programs that use system benefits charge for non-electric savings out of all the programs that we run. They are the low-income weatherization program and the non-low-income weatherization program for residents in the state. At Eversource, that represents approximately 25% of the energy savings that we achieve and approximately 25% of our budget. As you know, the legislature requires that 20% of the system benefits charge go toward that low-income weatherization program. I think Ethan Cole just did an incredible job kind of giving you a perspective on the ground from our contractors about what these programs mean for small businesses in our state that are doing the installations and for the customers that they serve. We are seeing incredible desire for this program from our customers. They want to, as Ethan said, invest in their homes, invest in their local economies and local workforce. On the low income side, the best way to save funds for these low-income customers is to help them reduce their heating fuel, regardless of whether that's electricity or fuel oil. And the primary goals of doing that help these customers get off of other types of fuel assistance and use their income to pay for other things that they need for their families, and hopefully helps to give them a better chance of rising out of that cycle of poverty by reducing their overall energy bills in their homes. And this is something we've been doing since 2002 with these programs, with a lot of support from legislatures and PUC commissioners. So I will stop there. I'm happy to take any questions about the programs or how we run them. And thank you for having me here today.
Questions from the committee? Kate, I have one. So you just said that this helps the low incomes get off public fuel assistance. Do you have data to prove that or to share with us?
I could certainly look for some specific data for you. I think one of the goals of weatherization programs is to reduce reliance on, there's a federal fuel assistance program that's utilized here in the state, and we coordinate with the federal weatherization programs as we run our programs as well. And that is indeed one of the things that we're trying to do. As we weatherize homes, we reduce fuel usage, which then we hope reduces the need for those customers to utilize fuel assistance. As Ray Burke noted, there are significant numbers of customers who are eligible for these programs. And so, you know, there are customers who are using fuel assistance that we have not been able to serve yet. And so I think it would take a little bit of digging to find the exact data you are looking for, but I'd certainly be happy to work with some folks and get some of that for you.
I do have one other question. I noticed on the sign-up sheet, you folks are neutral, but it seems to me that as you're testifying that this bill would basically put you folks in limbo as far as not knowing how to go forward. Is that correct?
I think we would like as much clarity as we could get from the legislature as to what your policy priorities are and how we can go about implementing them. These programs are really important to our customers. They're important to us to deliver them well. And we try to work within all the regulatory and legislative frameworks that we have to work within, which is, you know, a lot of public conversation, a lot of documentation. And, you know, I think the more clarity we have, the better job we can do in providing good programs to our customers, and providing the messages about what's going to be possible in the marketplace, what we're going to offer, so that we reduce confusion in terms of customers who want information from us.
All right, let me reword that. Does this bill clarify and make it simpler for you to achieve those goals?
I have questions about the language in this bill currently.
All right,
in terms of that clarification. For example, it says that the main purpose of the fund should be towards reducing electric usage. I would say currently that's how we operate the programs. You know, if 25% of our funds are going towards non-electric, that means 75% are reducing electric usage. And so there's a question there as to what is the direction that the legislature is trying to give us. Do we need to change the programs based on what's in the language of this bill, or is the way that we're currently running them actually meeting the language of the bill?
Senator Waters.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to kind of follow up on what you're asking, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your testimony, Kate, that just in terms of practical effect, it seems highly unlikely the PUC would move forward knowing this legislation is in place. And let's say, you know, it gets passage, that means the governor's going to sign it. So we might be out till July, August. And then at that point, you know, a bill is off the table until next, you know, May or June. And fiscal committee, would it want to act or would it act? So in a way, this bill means that there won't be any, that they really can't get that money out the door this in 2021. Is that, am I correct in assuming that?
So we are currently operating the programs under directive from the commission at the funding levels from 2020 while they review the plan that we proposed for 2021 and beyond. So we are running programs. We have approval from the commission for our current funding levels. The confusion, I think, is about when and whether we'll get a ruling from the commission on the proposal that is before them, and then when and whether that approval may need to additionally go before the legislature and how that process will work. So yes, I'd say there's a lot of confusion over that future timeline, but we are currently running programs at this.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Kate. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we have Donna Gamache.
Welcome back, Donna.
Thank you very much, but Kate just covered it for us. So I was going to testify with her and hand it over to her to answer the questions, but you beat me and you saved some time. So I'm good to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Good job. Anybody else?
Next, we have Daniel Ramage.
Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you. My name is Dan Ramage. I own A+ Energy Services. I've been working in the weatherization programs in New Hampshire since '92 with low income and this program once it started. It was always the main goal to save electricity, but as the years went by, back then there was quite a few electrically heated homes still that we could, obviously serve and obtain a lot of energy savings. That slowly started to dwindle because they were being served already, or they were being fuel switched once a new owner took over the home. So that would be a crux if it went back to only being electric savings. It's going to be a really difficult thing to achieve high numbers, especially now with LED lights and very efficient refrigerators and appliances due to federal guidelines. And the other thing you have to think about, even like going to solar or something like that, a home has, we'll say, a calorie requirement, like a person. I need 2,000 calories a day to maintain myself. Every house has that based upon the construction type and the builder and the builder's mistakes. So if you fuel switch or go to solar, you're still going to have that high requirement. You may save some money fuel switching per se, but the home still could be an energy hog. In fact, a lot of solar companies give us referrals and the program referrals asking the homeowner to go through this program to reduce their need. So if they do go to solar, they have less requirement for the panels and the cost is obviously a lot less. So it's a win-win situation there too. And this program, it's come a long way. It's evolved a lot. We are still not doing as much as our neighboring states, but it's a very well run program, and it makes amazing savings and comfort for homeowners. Homeowners nowadays, a lot of them are working from home. So now their need for heating the house is a lot higher. Most houses have comfort issues. They're usually 2 to 3 times leakier than what they should be, because we do a lot more than just insulation. We do a lot of air sealing is what we call it. And it's tightening up a home, and we do testing before and after that measures how tight it is. So it's not too tight, but we follow stringent training requirements that teach us how to do all that, all of us contractors. And so tightening up the home, making it more comfortable it's a very noticeable thing. Most people in the state of New Hampshire, they're just used to being in a cold house, cold drafty house, or uneven temperatures. They don't even know where to look to fix that usually. This program's main goal also was to transform the market so people become more aware of energy efficiency and start doing it on their own. We're still coming to that avenue, I think, slowly, not as far as progressive as some of the other states next to us. But this bill here is really going to, even now, I think it's causing some unrest amongst the contractors who saw with the triennial plan a need to grow. Equipment and crews, but now we've kind of on a standstill, and
Mr.
it makes
Ramage,
sense.
I'm
Yep,
sorry, but your
sure.
time has expired.
No problem. I'll take questions if there are any.
Questions from the committee? So Daniel, I assume that you're not for this bill.
I am not.
Thank you. All right, and we appreciate your testimony.
Okay, next up we have Emily Manns.
Welcome, Emily.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking my testimony today. Well, my comments. My name is Emily Manns, and I am chair of the Peterborough Energy Committee. And so, in addition to the excellent testimony before me in opposition of HB 351 that described the benefits of energy efficiency, I wanted to add a community's voice to support for energy efficiency programs, for full funding of energy efficiency that is also a least cost resource to the electric utilities. I think that the description of the Granite State test sufficiently describes the process, that the appropriate process for the regulators to go through to determine the program. And I think that we should remove barriers to the 2021 to 2023 New Hampshire Saves programs. And we're already 4 months past when they should have started. And as a community group, we've been waiting since I learned about the increased funding, and also we are looking into community power. We have been enthusiastically talking up New Hampshire Saves in our community and getting people ready to adopt that using community power, rooftop solar as vehicles to get people more interested in energy topics. And energy efficiency is kind of the uninteresting sibling of renewable energy, but it is very impactful for our communities. And so I'll just finish by saying that these programs are important for communities to meet their goals of lower energy costs and for, well, I would say for resilience and also for environmental benefits. And so, and efforts like HB 351 just stand in the way of a renewable energy future and community goals. And I really ask you to oppose HB 351 and vote an expedient to legislate. Thank you for taking my comments and happy to answer questions.
Questions from the committee? Thank you very much, Emily. We appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Next we have Madeline Minot.
Welcome, Madeline.
Thank you, Chairman Avard, for the opportunity to speak on this bill. On behalf of Clean Energy New Hampshire, I urge you to oppose House Bill 351. We were very involved in the planning of the energy efficiency plan that's being discussed and that this bill would affect. We also have members who are efficiency contractors that this would affect directly. Our energy efficiency programs directly benefit all customers. As was explained by previous testimony, there is a very rigorous benefit cost analysis that must be met for every dollar invested in the programs. There must be more benefits generated for ratepayers. It's also a direct investment in our local economy. All of the spending goes to local contractors to make improvements in our homes and businesses. Requiring legislative approval of the system benefits charge would very severely affect the timing and the continuity of the programs. As was mentioned, the 2021 to 2023 plan that's before the commission that really should have been ruled on by the end of last year, by December, is still pending. And so if this bill were to pass before we get an order from the commission, and then we get an order from the commission, say in June or July, we would continue the uncertainty of knowing whether or not we can move forward with that plan, because then we would have to go through the whole process of legislative approval. And we would have to do that every year. What we heard during the stakeholder process for the plan consistently was that contractors and businesses are looking for more predictability, a longer planning horizon, and this would completely disrupt that. Also, there is a tremendous amount of technical information to consider when there should be a decision made whether or not the system benefits charge increase is warranted. For example, the plan that was submitted to the commission included roughly 1,000 pages of information That's not including testimony from the parties regarding the plan. And then there was roughly 28 hours of hearings on that plan and the associated system benefits charge. It's not really realistic to expect that the legislature would be able to put in that much time, and they don't have access to expert utility analysts to also advise them and review that information. So it would be very difficult. Regarding focusing on electric savings, as Kate Peters explained, the programs already mostly focus on electric savings. However, the weatherization services are extremely beneficial, both to low-income customers and the other customers that participate in the weatherization programs. So we would argue that unless the legislature is thinking of finding an alternative source of funding for those weatherization programs, that we really do want to maintain funding for those programs. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions from the committee? Senator Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madeline. So, you know, it was, I think, in the inaugural address from Governor Sununu in 2019, where he said that he called for increased attention to funding for low-income folks for energy efficiency and fuel savings. And I mean, that's why I put in my bill that, you know, is in here. None of this language really changes that, but, you know, in terms of the emphasis on that program and getting a percentage of 20%, that, I mean, that was a response to the governor's call for it. And so would it be fair to say that the governor has always very strongly supported energy efficiency efforts that help low-income folks?
I would say it's been a consistent, certainly public talking point of the governor to say that programs like our efficiency programs or renewable energy programs should directly benefit, especially lower income customers.
Yeah. So if I may follow up, Mr. Chairman, another question.
Yep.
Yeah, so Madeline, procedurally, you know, in some ways, I wonder whether this bill is kind of moot because, you know, there's going to be a new appointment to the PUC, right? And then the PUC, if it didn't like the current plan, which is the last one they'll be doing without legislative approval,
right?
That right now, what, you know, once they get that, I mean, I don't know whether the delay has been because they're waiting for the new appointee or for whatever reason, there will be a full commission slate in place. And if they decided that, you know, or they heard from folks like the governor or others that this plan, you know, that is not getting the kind of support, then they could do what they wanted with it, right? So even without this bill, they can, you know, the commissioners can do what they're going to do, and then by the time the next plan comes around, it's in the legislature anyway. So does that make sense to you that maybe this bill really, given the process, isn't needed?
I would say it's uncertain why the commission still hasn't acted on the 2021 to 2023 plan. Some people think that it is because we're down one commissioner and that perhaps having a full slate of commissioners may solve the impasse. However, pending legislation like this one may also be a reason why the commission is waiting to act. Yeah. It's difficult to know, right? We've just gotten silence from the commission. We don't know why we haven't gotten an order yet. So even if a third commissioner is appointed, they would then have to review the entire record. And I don't know how quickly they could get an order out if the end of the legislative session would happen first, or if we might get an order first. It's hard to know. And then if this bill did pass first, even if the commission rejected the settlement agreement or the plan, but did want to approve a modest increase in the system benefits charge, any increase in the system benefits charge would have to go to the fiscal committee or the legislature. So it would cause further delay, even if a very much more conservative approach to continuing the efficiency programs was approved by the commission.
Well, I guess I'll just say it strikes me as kind of odd that the program about energy efficiency is, the bill is creating the most inefficient kind of way of managing it that there might be. So there we are. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any further questions? Madeline, just a couple. So we had some testimony from AFP that this bill basically helps out with transparency and accountability. What are your thoughts about that?
So I'm chair of the EASY board. And so I certainly want to clarify that Representative Vose said that a committee of the EASY board set the system benefits charge. And I don't think that that's the case at all. We followed direction from the legislation and the commission to do a stakeholder-driven planning process. Every single meeting was open to the public. It was noticed. There are minutes. It was all public meetings. And so anyone would have been absolutely welcome to participate, to listen, to provide input. We had multiple rounds of accepting public comments during the planning process for the plan. And so it was almost a year-long planning process where we had meetings twice a month. There was plenty of opportunity to participate for the public or to follow what was going on. The subcommittee reported to the EASY board, which again is a public body with public meetings on the developments of the plan. And then there was votes both by the subcommittee and the EASY board. We advised the program administrators on what we would like to see in their plan. Ultimately, the program administrators are the one that put together their plans and programs and then submitted that to the commission for a full docket process, which again, all public utility dockets are open to the public. All the information is available to the public. And then we went through a full PUC docket process. So I think at any point, any member of the public, business, legislator, anyone that wanted to have input in the process was absolutely welcome to participate.
So transparency and accountability that's been taken care of.
I think yes.
So for the general public to understand something, when you're looking at your bill, basically from Don Christ's consumer advocates, because he deals with the public, you're looking at the transmission, you're looking at distribution, and then you're looking at systems benefits charge on a typical bill. Is that correct?
So on a typical residential bill, you'll have a customer charge, which is fixed. You have transmission, distribution, energy, and then yes, there is a system benefits charge, which funds the efficiency programs and a few other things. There also can be some other charges like stranded cost, or some of the utilities have other charges.
What does a typical bill look like with the systems benefit charge?
What proportion is it?
Yeah, what do you think that is?
It is very, very small. Currently, all the utilities have different charges, and so I can't tell you exactly what it is per kilowatt hour, but we're talking about, for a typical residential customers, maybe a $1 or $2 a month.
That much?
That funds not only the efficiency programs, but also bill assistance for low-income customers. So if a low-income customer can't pay their utility bill, they can get assistance for that. That's also paid by the system benefits charge.
Okay, and so that's probably the least part of your bill, right?
It is very, very small, yes.
All right, and one final question, if you might. Do you know if this language is also in House Bill 2?
It was in the original version introduced, yes. I would need to check to see if it is still in the latest version.
And if it is in the latest version, we don't really need this bill then, correct?
That is correct.
All right, any further questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your testimony, Madeline.
Thank you.
And we have Nick Krakoff.
Welcome, Nick.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Chairman Avard and honorable members of the committee. I'm here on behalf of Conservation Law Foundation. I'm here to testify in opposition to HB 351 and urge the committee to vote ITL. For those of you who aren't aware of CLF, we're a nonprofit environmental advocacy organization working in New Hampshire for healthy communities and a healthy environment, including advancing clean energy policies that reduce pollution and strengthen the state's economy. As has been testified already, energy efficiency is good for New Hampshire's economy and for ratepayers as well. Since 2002, energy efficiency measures in New Hampshire have resulted in cumulative customer savings in excess of $3.4 billion. The New Hampshire Utilities 2021 to 2023 Energy Efficiency Plan, filed in September, would result in additional customer energy cost savings of more than $1.3 billion over the 3-year period. The energy efficiency measures under the plan are all cost effective, meaning they're the lowest cost energy resource. This means that a unit of energy saved through efficiency under the plan is less expensive than the total lifetime cost of a unit of energy from other sources. However, by making it less likely that future EERS plans would receive sufficient funding, HB 351 would result in substantially reduced energy benefits for New Hampshire residents. Specifically, the provisions in HB 351 requiring legislative approval of increases to the SBC are unworkable and unrealistic. The SBC is just like any other rate on your electric bill. The Commission sets all other electric rates. It makes no sense to carve out one of the rates so that it's set by the legislature. More importantly, the Commission has the resources and expertise to evaluate SBC rates. As Ms. Minot just testified, the 2021 to 2023 plan consisted of nearly 1,000 pages and 5 days of hearings. The legislature has delegated decisions involving the EERS and SBC rates to the Commission because the Commission is prepared to decide the complex issues that arise under EERS plans. Quite simply, the legislature lacks the necessary time and resources to sufficiently review the many issues that arise under EERS plans. Additionally, the provision in HB 351 specifying that the main purpose of New Hampshire's energy efficiency program is to reduce the consumption of electricity and not other forms of energy ignores the many benefits arising from energy efficiency programs that reduce the use of thermal energy. Energy consumers save immensely on reduced heating costs from energy efficiency programs that help them weatherize their homes or buy clean, efficient heating sources. Weatherization programs also create hundreds of jobs for contractors. HB 351 would significantly curtail, if not eliminate, these benefits. Finally, the provision in HB 351 requiring SBC increases to receive authorization from the Fiscal Committee of the General Court is likely unconstitutional pursuant to precedent of the New Hampshire Supreme Court. In sum, the EERS works under current law, and HB 351 would result in a reduction in the numerous energy efficiency benefits for New Hampshire consumers and contains an unconstitutional delegation to a single committee of the General Court. Therefore, CLF urges the committee to reject HB 351 and vote ITL. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Thank you, Nick. Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Joseph Kwasnick.
Welcome back, Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to testify on this bill, House Bill 351. I'm providing oral testimony in opposition to the bill and suggest that it be ITL'd. I won't reference what the bill says, but let me just comment on what it does. First of all, a little bit of history. The General Court decided during the restructuring of the electric utility industry to permit the use of the SBC for all energy efficiency programs regardless of fuel type used within residential, commercial, or industrial locations. I believe this was recognition that regardless of the fuel type used for space heating, all residential, industrial, and commercial locations within the state were also electricity customers, contributing to the SBC more rightly able to share in the use of the SBC for non-electric energy efficiency efforts. As such, the decision not to solely restrict the use of the system benefit charge to measures to reduce electric consumption in the state were justified and would benefit all energy consumers. I think that decision is still valid today. I also want to say that requiring legislative approval for increases in the SBC is inconsistent with long-standing statute and the current function of the PUC to set electric rates and, by extension, the SBC. I might also add that the SBC is a a rate based on dollars per kilowatt hour. Surely the PUC is better positioned to evaluate the needs for increases in the SBC than the New Hampshire General Court, and can do so in an effective, efficient, and I'll stress timely manner. In addition, the process is not broken, and injecting the legislature into this process does not improve the process of energy efficiency in the state. I also add that New Hampshire is currently last among the New England states in terms of energy efficiency investment. We're currently ranking, I believe the number is 26 in the country in terms of investment in energy efficiency, which I think is an embarrassment for our state. It also, with this lack of investment, we're much less competitive with the other New England states, and that is not a good thing for the state. And that concludes my testimony. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much, Joseph.
Thank you.
Okay, so the last two people that I have signed up to speak are Dana Fisher and Gerald Milliken. I don't see either of them on the list. So if you are calling in under a different name, if you could please raise your hand.
Is Representative Vos still available?
I'm not sure, but we do have a number. It looks as though Representative Vos is still here. We do have a number of hands that have raised, though. Representative Doug Thomas, Robert Hayden, and it looks like we've got Mr. Milliken, so we'll go to him first.
Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you very much. I'll make this brief. Chairman Avard, thank you, and committee members. Again, my name is Gerald Milliken. I am employed with Tri-County Community Action Agency, and I am the department head, which encompasses weatherization, workforce programs, and facilities operation and administration. And I wanted to, on my statement, get it down to a couple key points. I know there's a lot of valid reasons what this bill would create problems with, but I'm opposed to it for a couple reasons. The current system's benefit charge is exactly as its name implies for anyone that takes advantage of the numerous programs it was designed to offer. For qualified applicants by income or home resource needs, the program benefits outweigh the system benefits charge and any applicable copay in total energy savings each year. The New Hampshire electrical assistance programs like the low-income weatherization, the HEA program, and the non-low-income programs, Home Performance with Energy Star, one of them, have been designed to look for electrical savings, but not stop there. Being fuel blind is a stronger, more inclusive conservation and whole home approach. HB 351's language threatens all inclusivity, energy savings of the current programs, and could jeopardize the total energy savings and a ratepayer gets for their money. Another concern I have is that by taking away the fees and settings by the PUC, this will at some point delay fees and structure information availability for program operators to plan workforce needs. I am opposed to the bill and will answer any questions.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much, Jerry.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll go to Representative Doug Thomas.
Representative Thomas, welcome. Hello? Going once?
Representative
All right.
Thomas, can you hear us? I'm not sure
All
he
right, we'll have to
unmuted.
move on. Yep.
All right, Representative Thomas, if you can get back with us, if you want to raise your hand, and in the meantime, we will go to Robert Hayden.
So Hayden, how are you?
I am very well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in opposition of HB 351. Many of the points I could have droned on about have been made much more eloquently by folks like Kat Mcgee, Madeline Mino, Don Creese, and Huck Montgomery. So I'd like to thank them for their fine testimony. But what I'd like to point out about this bill is we're hearing this bill 351 after having heard 315. 315 had extensive stakeholder work and was a bill that satisfied all of those stakeholders who worked on it. HB 351 had virtually no work. It was put forth and voted on quickly, and that was nearly a split vote. So I agree that this bill is appropriate to ITL. It's not ready. I don't think there's much about it that is ready. But that's my opinion. I do have one fact for you, Kevin. You asked what the actual systems benefits charge was, and that is tied to KWH. So it's a multiple of KWH used in that month of the bill, and that is 0.743 cents per kilowatt hour. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But thank you so much for letting me speak in opposition of 351.
How much per kilowatt hour?
0.743 cents per kilowatt hour.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Hayden. Appreciate it.
Okay, so we're going to try Representative Doug Thomas again. Representative
Doug,
Thomas.
you there?
I am trying to speak, but I can't get my audio.
We got you. I heard
Oh,
you.
you hear me now?
Yes, sir. You sound like an angel.
I apologize for that. Somehow on this particular meeting, my audio wasn't working. Thank you. I just wanted to say that I obviously I do support the bill. I completely agree with everything that Chairman Vos had stated, but I would like to have the body consider just a couple of things. One, both myself and a member of OSI were the two dissenting members on the EASY board on the 3-year energy efficiency plan because of the exponential increase that was being proposed. And despite what people think, the general public just does not attend all these subcommittee meetings all the time, and they have no idea really what's going on. But I feel that as a representative, I have a fiduciary responsibility to my constituents, and the town of Londonderry has a lot of elderly people on fixed income. Their electric bills have not been decreased. The virtual savings that may come down line do not help them in the present tense. So I feel that having some sort of legislative oversight on even if it's a small portion of your electric bill, it's still one of the very few things that we have direct control over for the bill. So much of the bill is out of our control. These are one of the very few things that we do have control over. Whether it's this bill or some other process that looks at this, the current system, I think, is almost untenable. This bill may not be the perfect solution, but I think it bears to consider that we have a fiduciary responsibility to our constituents, and the electric bills keep going up. And I think in this particular case, this bill is at least sending a message that we need to get these costs under control in some way that we can have oversight on them. And one last point I'll make is when the original bill was passed about where this money should be spent, I think that's a problem we have with people respecting some of our politicians when we pass a bill to do one thing and then later on we say, for whatever good reason it might be, we use it for other means. I think we either change the way we do it or we stick to the original intent of the bill to get some credibility back in here. But that's my my testimony, and I hope the body considers those points. Thank you.
Representative, thank you for your testimony. We really appreciate it. One of the previous speaker had mentioned that it's, pardon me, my cough, that the cost for the SBC is 0.074 cents per kilowatt. You said it's gone up exponentially. Can you tell me what it is now?
Well, I forget the official name, but the 3-year energy plan was going to have an exponential increase within 3 years from what we were currently doing. This goes in 3-year plans. And I think it was going to raise somewhere from around anywhere from 30 million. Within 3 years, it was going to be like 280 million. We certainly weren't decreasing the SBC in that case. We were exponentially increasing it. And during terms of this pandemic, I think that was a rather odd time to be exponentially increasing those costs. Now, understand the percentage of what is in your electric bill might be small compared to the costs of other things that are put into your electric bill. But the way I think about it is whether it's $1 a month or whether it's $2 a month. Personally, I pay almost $5 or $6 a month on that. I can absorb that no problem. But I'm thinking of the fixed income people where $50 or $100 or maybe $200 in a year. That might be a meal for them or a couple of nice lunches out for them. And so I can afford it, no problem. But I'm thinking about the people who really are just looking at the bill and it never goes down. It never goes down. It keeps going up. And that's my point. I'm looking after my people here in my constituency.
One other question I have, I don't know if you have the answer for this, but is there similar language to this in HB2? Do you know?
I really don't know. I haven't looked at HB2 in depth because that's not in my committee.
Well, we really appreciate your testimony, Representative. Questions from the committee? Senator Waters.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'll just comment that the ever efficient and brilliant Griffin Roberge has that information about HB2, and it appears there's some of the language of the bill, but it does not appear that the business about reducing is in the HB2. So there is we got a lot of things flying around on it. So,
yeah, thank you very much, Senator Waters. I just wanted to clarify that. I appreciate that. So, any other questions for Representative Doug Thomas? Really appreciate you, sir. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So Senator, we have Representative Notter's hand up again. I'm not sure if she's intending to speak again, but we can let her in and see, I guess.
Representative, are you still there?
Hi, yes, actually pressed that button by accident, but I have an appointment at 4 and I'm starting to wonder if this hearing is ever going to end so I can present 373.
I'm going to rush, I promise you.
All right.
I'm doing that right now. So,
Thank
any
you.
more speakers?
I don't see anyone else with their hands up, Senator.
So we will close the hearing then on HB 351, and we will start with HB 337, and we'll look for the prime sponsor.
Representative Notter.
Oh, welcome back.
Good afternoon, Senators.
Welcome.
I'm Representative Janine Notter. I'm the House Majority Whip and a member of the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee. And my elevator speech for House Bill 373, it's basically just to stop the Department of Environmental Services from spending time and resources on a program that New Hampshire is not going to join. So the background on this bill, to understand why it was brought forth, is first to tell you about the Transportation Climate Initiative, which I'll refer to as TCI. It's a cap and trade program. It would put a cap on carbon emissions from gasoline vehicles, which would force gas distributors to pay allowances to sell gas above the cap. Revenues from these allowances would then be sent back to participating states in which the gas was purchased. TCI is a regressive gas tax. So I looked that up, and regressive, what it means is that it imposes a harsher burden on lower income households, harming those who can least afford it, like the elderly, those on fixed incomes, and the working poor. My grown children are commuters. They should not have to bear the burden of higher gas prices to get to work. Moreover, nearly every product that we buy at the store is delivered by trucks. TCI would drive up the cost of goods because it would cost more to run the trucks that deliver them. This increase is then passed along to the consumer. TCI would raise taxes for years to come. However, unlike the legislature, where our constituents can hold us accountable for tax increases, TCI shifts the responsibility of raising gas taxes to an unelected and unaccountable board. The public deserves the right to know and hold responsible the people who are taking money out of their pocket. In 2012, the New Hampshire legislature passed a law that New Hampshire will not join, implement, or participate in any state, regional, or national low carbon fuel standards program or any similar program that requires quotas, caps, or mandates on fuels used for transportation, industrial purposes, or home heating without seeking legislative approval. Governor Sununu has confirmed that we will not be joining TCI. Yet the TCI website shows that New Hampshire is a participant because the law allows the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services to spend time and money reviewing the proposals that our state is banned from entering. In fact, the agency has expended nearly 800 hours of staff time at a cost of close to $50,000 to date. Those in disagreement with this bill may tell you that electric vehicles are the wave of the future. If this is true, then the free market will get us there without the Transportation Climate Initiative. As amended, this bill does not allow DES to participate in discussions or planning of programs that we are not going to join, unless specifically directed on a case-by-case basis. And that's the gist of it. Very simple.
Okay, questions from the committee? Senator Waters.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative, for introducing the bill. For this committee, this may be a little unfamiliar because this bill, this legislation has always been in the Transportation Committee, going back 10 years now, but here we have it here today. The current language was created by a bill from Senator Bradley, and which made it very clear, as you said, that we will not join into any such, implement or join into such program unless the legislator approved. And, I strongly support that. But did you have any conversation with Senator Bradley, who created this language, about this proposal?
No, I first heard about the Transportation Climate Initiative from the American Legislators Exchange Council. Mm-hmm. This is going back 2 or 3 years. I don't remember when it was. And then I found out that we were not going to join it, but we're spending money and resources on going to the meetings. And I'm a fiscal conservative. We try to save money whenever we can, and this is a way to save some money.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I mean, if I may follow up, Mr. Chairman. So, in a sense, the TCI aside, I mean, some states are going to join it, some aren't. And I really don't know what I think about it, whether it'd be good or not. That's just other conversations, and we're not going to do it unless the bill gets introduced to do it. But in terms of participation in the conversations, Massachusetts is in, Rhode Island is in, and Maine maybe. I mean, who knows? But isn't it the case that if these states are in, there definitely is going to be impacts upon New Hampshire folks who, a lot of truckers, a lot of commuters, anybody else who fills up their tank down there, that they might be affected, and maybe we ought to hear what's being talked about.
Well, I think they should fill up their tanks here. It would save them money, and it would be good for everybody all around. And the other states should look to us as the policymakers and follow our lead.
Well, listen, let me say, I always try to fill up my tank before I cross that border. Okay, so we're good. Okay. But but the fact of the matter is that a lot of folks might be affected by it. And another side of it too is that Again, I really don't know what I think about TCI in terms of New Hampshire, but isn't it the case that TCI proposals, for example, in Massachusetts, since they give the state the right to decide where that money goes, that Massachusetts is going to use that money almost entirely to go to low-income folks and to efficiency for truckers and consumers about their vehicles. So isn't it the case that if this is such a thing is done, that the state gets to decide whether it helps low-income folks or not?
Well, I can't speak to what the other states are doing and how they spend tax money. I'm only concerned about how our state spends tax money, and I don't like taxes. I think we have too many. And I think of my children all the time. They're grown, and every dollar they make counts. And to have to spend more and more and more and more on gasoline to get to work, it's not a good idea. And it's a hardship for everyone. I would like to see taxes come down. And I've been on the Science, Technology, and Energy Committee now for I think this is my 4th term on that committee. And I remember in previous years hearing that, well, the ultimate goal is to make gas so expensive that nobody can afford to use it. And then they'll turn to electric vehicles. But, electric vehicles are expensive too. And how do they get the cobalt and the lithium to build these batteries for the electric cars? They use natural gas to get that product and then to take it to where it needs to go. And it's just, I just don't get it. I mean, just leave things alone.
A lot of problems to solve in our world, don't we, Representative? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And thank you for your service, Representative. We appreciate it. Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, we appreciate it. And sorry it took so long to get here.
That's okay. I wish we had time for a song from our singing senator.
Well,
Maybe next time.
Yeah, we don't want to do that right now. Thanks. Appreciate that. All right, Jen.
Next up, Senator, we have Representative Kat Mcgee.
Representative Mcgee.
Me again. It's like I have nothing better to do. Hi, folks. Thanks again for having me again. Kat Mcgee from Hillsborough 27 Hollis. I sat through the hearings on House Bill 373, which I would ask you to ITL. And in those hearings, I'm not sure if Mr. Moore is still online to testify today, but he testified in our hearing. And I did ask him if he had actually written the bill, which he had in our conversations. Basically, the amendment that was put on the bill, I believe it was Representative Thomas's amendment, changed the language from what it had originally said under the section on low carbon fuel standards programs in RSA 21-0:23, to read as follows: the Department of Environmental Services shall not participate in discussions or planning of such programs unless specifically directed by the governor or designated representative on a case-by-case basis. So, we were kind of, some of us on the committee were kind of affectionately calling this the gag rule bill, because although we can have differing opinions about whether something like the Transportation Climate Initiative is a good use of New Hampshire's time, the governor has already indicated that the state is not going to participate, and that decision is well known. So the way New Hampshire has been involved is not as a participant per se, but simply they are like a casual observer. They're basically remaining involved so that they can provide information to the legislature about what is going on in the region and in the surrounding states in terms of that initiative moving forward. So I would argue that that is what we pay the Department of Environmental Services Air Quality Division for, is to at least be able to give us information about ongoing efforts that may affect us and our economy and the region. And so I oppose it for that purpose. We're not participating in the program, and we're not losing any money because we're paying those employees the same amount of money regardless of what it is they're researching on our behalf. So that would be my argument that it's an unnecessary bill. And I hope that you'll consider ITL. Thank you.
Senator Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative Mcgee. So, I mean, you described the reality of where the governor is on this, and that's fine, he's the governor. But the existing language doesn't say the Department of Environmental Services shall, it says they may engage in discussions. And so right now, if the governor has told them don't participate in those discussions, that's the governor's authority.
That's right.
So would it be fair to say that this legislation says that we don't trust our governor to make the decision already, but we have to tell him what his power is?
I kind of felt that way as well, in that the language that was there was already sufficient. It's now more emphatic. I think the thing that was more concerning to me is that it comes from a lobbyist who's trying to interfere in the government between the governor and, you know, one of the executive agencies. And I just don't think it's appropriate. I think saying you shall not ever discuss, I mean, that just seems like a very strange thing to try and legislate, because it, as you say, it superimposes itself upon the relationship of the governor and the agencies that he's the head of. He already has that ability, and he's already made his position clear, and we don't need any further jurisdiction coming from somebody outside the government who wants to change the language so that it's not allowed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Senator Perkins-Coie.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Representative Mcgee. I mean, wouldn't you also agree that it's sort of a part of staff function to know what's going on out there and be able to inform our governor about these agreements so that he has information, you know, on which to make any decisions about how to direct them?
I think that's sort of the main takeaway that I had, and the main point that I wanted to state is that they're paid to be the agency that provides us information about what's happening in terms of, you know, air pollution, air quality, and any changes that are going on in the region as concerns that. And I might just add that as somebody who's been on science, technology, and energy for just a couple of terms now, you know, I can say that I'm aware that when we talk about different sectors of the energy portfolio in terms of emissions, most everybody is moving from electric generation, where we spent a lot of emphasis in the last decade, to transportation as the next portion of that portfolio, where they're looking to figure out ways to lower. So it's Senator Waters is actually more than familiar with this, but you know, I think that's where an emphasis is right now in terms of states and their policies. And so to ask an agency of our state government that is responsible for providing information on those policies to just cover their ears and close their eyes, you know, as a matter of statute, it just doesn't make any sense. It's because yes, we do rely on them. I mean, that's the point of us paying them, is so that they can provide us with a context and a perspective from their expertise that we don't possess.
Thank you.
I have a question. So you said that the person who wrote this legislation was a lobbyist. Are you saying that we shouldn't let lobbyists write any legislations or language for us?
I think we rely on a lot of the people who are in and around the legislature to inform us on things we're not experts on, and I have no problem with that. I think the fact that the impetus for preventing the state from participating in discussing, being involved in the Transportation Climate Initiative is a step beyond that. I think that that may be in American for Prosperity's interests, not having us participate in the Transportation Climate Initiative, but I do think it's 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 not the kind of legislation that I think is beneficial to the people of the state of New Hampshire. That's how I view it. I think if it had a goal that it achieved that would benefit the people in the state, then I'd be much happier. I think.
So, if I may, if the governor did sign this bill, would that send a message saying, "Look, don't waste your time on this. Maybe we should have you focus on other things that this particular legislative body wants to address, rather than be sidetracked with something else." What would you say if the governor did sign this bill?
I wouldn't have anything to say if the governor signed the bill. I mean, I think if the governor signed the bill, that would be it. I guess my takeaway is that the governor has already made it clear to the people who head the Department of Environmental Services, Air Quality Division, that the Transportation Climate Initiative is something they can be tangentially aware of, but they are not to participate in. So I think that's what they're doing. And I think anything beyond that is overkill, and it doesn't serve the state. So.
I appreciate it.
You're probably sorry you asked, right?
Not at all.
All right.
All sides of the issue.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Jen?
Okay, next up, Senator, we have Representative Doug Thomas.
Representative Thomas, welcome back.
Thank you. Can you still hear me?
We can.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'd like to, I have a different perspective than my good friend from Hollis on this bill. And that would be, first of all, I did have no knowledge about where this bill came from. I did know, of course, who the sponsor of the bill was. And it seemed to me that there was an air that an agency may be going to meetings on a program that New Hampshire may not be supporting. And perhaps even if it was their own idea, I didn't know if that was such a good idea to be spending money, whereas was so eloquently approached just a short time ago that they could be using your funds on something else. But I did find that the way the original bill was written could be construed as a bit restrictive. So when I offered the amendment, I was merely attempting to say, basically, look, we don't spend money on programs that we're not supporting. However, there may be a time when the governor, who of course oversees his agencies, may want for a particular reason to send his people to a program that we're not supporting because of something that just came to light, and he should have the latitude to do so. So my attempt was to make this bill with the message saying we don't do those things unless, of course, you're specifically directed by your boss to go out there and do it for a specific reason. So that's my perspective on what this bill was about with the amendment. I do not think of it as being a gag order whatsoever, and I don't believe that it's meant for any other program except this one specifically. So that's why I wrote the amendment, and that's I hope that you all consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Mike Fitzgerald.
Hello, Michael.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Mike Fitzgerald. I'm the Assistant Director of the Air Resources Division at the Department of Environmental Services. And I provided some information to the committee, a copy of a letter that we sent to the House on this bill when it was originally proposed. And the bill has been changed, as has been described here, and we take no position. We didn't take a position on the original bill in the House, and we take no position on this bill. I just wanted to provide some background information. And by way of background, in 2012, a bill was presented to the legislature that would have prevented us from participating in any low carbon fuel program. As was stated previously, Senator Bradley did broker a compromise that resulted in the language that's in the statute today, which says that we may participate, we may not implement any program, but we may participate in discussions, and that we are to report all expenses relative to that. So as the TCI program developed over the past several years, we did participate in discussions, primarily to better understand what the impact would be to the state of New Hampshire, and to be able to report to the governor and have the governor make any decision as to whether we should participate or not. Ultimately, when the TCI program did develop in 2019 and a memorandum of understanding was proposed, we informed the governor about that. He determined that we would not participate. And since that time, we have discontinued our participation in direct program discussions. We do receive some briefings at present in terms of the development of the program, but that's only in order so that we can, again, continue to inform the governor. This bill would require us to, I guess, get the direct permission of the governor or his designee. We're not clear on exactly what that means. I assume, we would assume, based on the language that's in the bill, that we would, have some communication with the governor's office and that they would give us some indication that they want us to proceed. Whether that would need to be memorialized in writing or not is not clear. But we certainly, would continue to participate. I would also give you some history. This is very similar to the way the RGGI program developed, Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative program. We participated in discussions for numerous years. New Hampshire was actually the last state to adopt the Regional Greenhouse Gas program. And it was only after we determined that there would be an impact on the state of New Hampshire if we did not participate, and that impact would be minimized by our participation. And we were able to share that information with the governor's office and the legislature. I would add, our participation is not solely to inform the governor. We want to be able to inform the legislature, because again, these programs would not be adopted in New Hampshire without legislation. We don't have the authority, nor does the governor have the authority to participate in a program like this without legislation. And so we, again, our participation is directed on in terms of trying to understand how this would impact New Hampshire and whether or not it would be beneficial for New Hampshire to join or not. And so with that, again, I shared some information that has more background, describes the situation in the development of TCI, and also provides the information that we have reported to the general court in terms of our expenses. And I'd be happy to address any questions that the committee might have. Thank you for the opportunity to share some information with you.
Thank you, Michael. Questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up tonight, we have Susan Richmond.
Welcome back, Susan. Susan? Going once.
So we can come back to her. In the meantime, we'll go to Greg Moore.
Welcome, Gregory Moore.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thanks for having me back again so soon. I'd like to testify this bill, but before I do, I'd like to offer some clarification, if not a correction. An earlier speaker suggested that we wrote this legislation. I did testify in the House committee that I did talk with the senator. I was specifically asked if we talked to him, and the answer is yes, we did talk to her. But I did not in any way, shape, or form write this legislation. OLS did. I think to suggest otherwise, unfortunately, discredits the sponsor, and I just want to make sure that that's clear. But certainly, TCI is an issue that I personally have had a long-standing interest in. As the chairman knows, I was working as the chief of staff of the House back when the original legislation in 2012 was passed, and considering it was sponsored by the speaker at the time, obviously I took a personal interest in it. When it went over to the Senate, as has been mentioned, Senator Bradley felt it was appropriate given the fact we did not know or understand the parameters of what TCI could or would be or how it would shake out, felt it was prudent to keep DES engaged in the discussions. The answer is that we now know what TCI has shaken out to be. There is an MOU. There is a draft MOU that 3 states out of the original 13 are proceeding with, and only 3 states at this point are moving forward with. A Tufts University study suggested that this would lead to increases in gas prices of in excess of 25 cents per gallon. It's a standard effect of a gas tax increase. The program goals of the Transportation and Climate Initiative are very open. They say they want to make the price of gas unaffordable in order to move forward in the transition away from fossil fuels. Their very intent is to raise the price of gasoline. Given that, and given the fact that the legislature needs to fully approve this, and our governor has made it clear that he does not intend to participate in TCI or have the state move forward in those discussions, this legislation seems prudent when our Department of Environmental Service does have limited resources, and using those resources on programs that we will not participate in simply does not make good use of the staff time that we have. I certainly know from being working in the executive branch that staff time is precious, and the more demands you put on these staffers, the harder it is for them to do the jobs that it's critical that they get done over the arc of their career. So, in their time at the agency. So, we fully support House Bill 373 and encourage you to pass it. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions, Senator Waters?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Greg. As I said, I'm really kind of agnostic on TCI itself, but you stated that the intent of the MOU is, it states that it's to make gas unaffordable. Could you provide to the committee where the actual language in the MOU where it says that it wants to make gas unaffordable? Because I mean I don't remember it being in there. So if you could provide that language, I'd be interested.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. It does not exist in the MOU. It exists in the TCI's website, and it exists within the framework of the discussions that they have had. It exists at least in one instance on the Transportation Climate Initiative website, as well as in a number of the briefing documents that have gone on. I've followed the TCI issue pretty closely over the arc of the last 6 or 7 years. I'll be abundantly clear. TCI has been, and run out of the Georgetown Climate Center, has been among the most transparent operations that I have seen. They have done everything as publicly as they humanly can. They have been as open as they humanly can. I give them a ton of credit for their work in that manner. Like I said, they put everything out there, and if you go to their website, there's voluminous materials. So I would have to go and track down the specific reference, but they have said specifically that part of their intent, as is the intent of other cap and trade programs, is to make the transition by making the price of gasoline and diesel less economically viable, and thus therefore increasing the alternative. The benefits of alternative transportation.
Well, thanks for that. You know, I've spent a lot of time studying TCI and going to meetings over many years too, and it's a big issue. And who knows? But I just wanted to clarify that the MOU, which is what is in play right now, so it doesn't have that language in there.
No, it does not.
I didn't remember it, and I was surprised when you said it.
No, not in the MOU, but on the TCI website itself. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Yeah,
that was one of my questions. So, the only question. Any other questions from the committee? Greg, do you think this is a gag order type of thing?
I don't, Senator. I think that this is that we make as the legislative body, we set priorities, and we set policy priorities through the legislation that passed in 2012. I would say it's fair to say that we took the position as a state that New Hampshire was TCI, or at that point it was still low carbon fuel standards. We were skeptical. I think that's fair to say based upon the legislation we passed in 2012. This legislation says would send a message that right now we're not interested. And that's an important message for agencies to hear. And as policymakers, again, I've worked in both the legislative and the executive branch. When you're in the executive branch and you get that message from the legislature, it sets the tone clearly about which direction the agency is, the state is headed in. And if an agency wants to change the opinion of that, well, then they have to go and start working with legislators to change their minds first. And that's the way it should work. The legislature should be setting a policy tone for the state.
Thank you. Senator Waters.
I might just say though, I mean, Greg, could anything be clearer than what Governor Sununu has said about TCI? And does he really need for us to tell him how to be clear? I mean, I'd be hard pressed to find any more definitive statements than the governor has issued on this, right?
Senator, I would fully agree with your assessment, but as policy making goes, we never make policy for one legislature or one governor. What one legislature does, another legislature can undo. But more importantly, by passing this legislation, what it does do is it forces a conversation with whoever a future governor might be, with presumably the commissioner of DES, to have a conversation about the direction in which the state's policy should go. So I think that forcing that conversation by putting this language in place is an important step.
Well, if I may just follow up then,
follow up.
but the legislation itself says that the governor doesn't have to come to the legislature if the governor decides to let the agencies talk about this, right? Because it says if the
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So the governor, if the governor now has said don't talk, if the next governor or future governor says go talk, the legislature has no impact on that, right?
Well, I'll start with this, Senator, and I appreciate the question. I'll start with this, and that is the fact that, as we know, the governor very definitively came out in December of 2019 as opposed to TCI. Based upon the reports sent to the fiscal committee, the biannual report sent to the fiscal committee, Department of Environmental Services spent 21 hours, and I believe, off the top of my head, I believe it was a little over $1,000 on TCI planning. That's after the governor said publicly, and I think very clearly, what his position was on it. So we have an agency that is continuing to use resources, even though A, it would require legislative approval, and B, the governor has specifically said that he does not intend to participate, and we still have an agency that's using resources. So I would encourage you to go look at the two biennial reports filed in the fiscal committee, I believe in July and February fiscal committees.
So it does sound like you're criticizing the governor for not having the agency do what he told him to do. Huh? But I mean, it's kind of moot. It just seems very moot to me, but that's okay, Greg. I don't need to get into dialogue about it.
But Senator, I would just follow up with that, and I would say that as somebody who worked for a commissioner of an agency that was appointed by a prior governor, but was still in effect after the appointment, I will say that department heads were often reminded neither work at the will of nor are they coterminous with the existing governor. So agencies can sometimes move in very different directions from the governor, and the governor has very limited constitutional authority to put them in check. I know that every governor has a frustration upon getting elected and inheriting the cabinet of the prior governor. And I know that's a frustration. I've spoken to at least two governors who expressed that frustration. And so I think it's important to sometimes put some of these checks in to make sure that the governor and the agencies are on the same page.
And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jen?
Okay, Senator, we're going to go back and try Susan Richmond again.
Susan.
Yes, hello. I'm here. I'm sorry. I did not realize that this is solely about the TCI. I just read that DES is not allowed to talk about carbon fuel standards, and I thought that would perhaps be rather broad, and it could include airline fuel or just even discussions with our neighboring states on patterns that we might be involved with, like EV charging stations. So given that, I just don't see the point of asking our experts in an executive committee not to talk with other people participating in programs. And on top of which, I again find it pernicious to tell the legislative branch to tell anyone in the executive branch how they conduct their business, and that that's a violation of the Constitution. So those are my reasons for being against House Bill 373, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none. Jen.
Okay, so the last two people I have signed up to speak are Paul Brock and Joseph Kwasnick. I don't see either of them here, so if anybody else would like to speak on the bill, you could raise your hand now. And I'm not seeing anyone, Senator.
Okay, so then we will close the hearing on HB 373. And is there a motion to move into exec?
So moved.
Is there a second? I saw your lips move, Senator Gray, but I didn't hear a voice.
Second.
Thank you. Senator Waters.
I thank you, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman. I guess procedure, I'd like to move House Bill.
Before we do that,
413.
we got to vote.
Oh, yes.
Yep. Senator Gray. Senator Perkins Quokka.
Yes.
Senator Abride, yes. Senator Waters, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sorry I went on so long today. It was partly my fault asking too many questions, but here we are.
I asked a lot myself. So.
Anyways, I'd like to move House Bill 413 ought to pass.
Is there a second?
I got to find out what it is first here.
Where'd that come from?
That's the
Solid
Waste Study Committee.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
So now I'd like to move amendment number what, Griffin?
We love you, Griffin.
So amendment 1150S and
Okay. Tell us what it does.
if somebody wants to second, I will.
I'll second it.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chairman and colleagues. Here's the situation. When we had our hearing on 413 a few weeks back, after that hearing, I was contacted by Chairman Ronzullo about Senate Bill 146. As you know, it's a complicated omnibus, and it turned out that that bill includes parts that affect 3 different House committees. And so he and Chairman Pearl of Environment and Agriculture and Chairman Lang of Fish and Game were trying to figure out a way to deal with that and have all 3 committees participate. And so one thing he wanted to follow up on was the possibility of putting our solid waste plan part of 146, part 2, onto 413. And why that would help the House is that then they could have the hearing this week, as it turns out, have a hearing because it needs to be a House hearing, but that they would look favorably upon this being done so that they could just concur with what we have done to 413, and then it could be done with. So they did request that if we are agreeable to do this today so that it was in place before the hearing on 146 on Wednesday. So that's why we're here. The Chair of Environment and Agriculture, which is the source committee of House Bill 413, so they would get this for the concurrence, consulted with his members, the minority leaders as well, and they asked for a very small change to the language. It says on the language there, the reduction goal for 2030 and 2050, and the language seemed to imply that that the same numbers be applied both or equally to to landfills and to incineration. And they thought that, that was, and that had not been the intent of the bill, but they were worried that that might lock the incineration or lock the landfills into those set numbers rather than having a process that the DES would work through as to, if you have the overall goals, what impact is it going to have on what. And so that's what they asked, that there be a change, but that's the only thing that otherwise they're all supportive of it. But they did ask for those 3 words to be struck. So that's what the amendment is.
Further discussion, Senator Gray.
Have we had a Senate hearing on this section of the bill?
Yeah, we passed this out of committee. I think it was unanimously, and then the whole 146, and then on the floor of the Senate we passed 146 23-1.
All right, I just as we've done so much here,
It's a blur. It can really be a blur. I mean, especially with these.
Well, you can imagine the headaches the House is having, right? And this was a request that we could take one of those headaches away if we did this part to which they agreed.
Yeah. So, further discussion on the amendment.
If I might, Senator Avard, I just wanted to make aware a grammatical error that I think might be in the amendment. If we look at page 1, line 26 to 27, it reads, the general court further declares a goal to reduce the quantity by weight of solid waste disposed 25% by the year 2030 and by 45% by the year 2050. Not sure if on lines 27 there should be a by between disposed and 25%.
Senator Waters, you're the expert here.
Reduce the quantity by weight of solid waste.
I think it could work either way, but I think by, it might be nice to have the word by in there too.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was just something that slipped out, because
I think it was just a mistake when we drafted the amendment.
Yeah, okay, so a good catch, Griffin, thank you. So I guess the committee amendment would include the word by after disposed.
Okay, we all in agreement to that? Sounds good. So that, Griffin, do your magic with that. And it's been seconded by myself. Further discussion on the amendment? Let's take a roll. Senator Waters?
Yes.
Senator Gray?
Yes.
Senator Gaida?
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka?
Yes.
Senator Avard? Yes. Is there a motion on the bill?
Move to pass as amended.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Senator, discussion? All right. Senator Gaida?
Yes.
Senator Waters?
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka?
Yes.
Senator Gray?
Yes.
Senator Avard? Yes. Senator Waters, would you like to take this out? Or would you like a motion to put it on consent?
I'll move consent.
Second.
I don't know why that's funny.
You don't want to, yeah. Bob doesn't want to give me a chance to talk. I know. Cool. And Bob, it's good to see you. I know you're working like crazy in finance and the cameo appearance.
All right, so motion to move on.
Here when I have to be.
By Senator Waters, seconded by Senator Gaida. Senator Waters.
Yes.
Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
Yes.
Senator Avard. Yes. Who would like to take this out?
I suppose I will. Thank you.
Senator Waters takes it out. Is there a motion to move out of exec?
So move.
All right.
Second.
Senator Gray moves to move out. Senator Gray. Hello. Senator Gaida moves to second. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Waters.
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
Yes.
Senator Avard, yes. And so thank you for all your hard work today, everybody, and for my lousy humor. I apologize. But anyway, we'll see you all later.
Move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn. Okay, so seconded by Senator Waters, Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Waters,
Yes.
Senator Gray,
Yes.
Senator Perkins Quokka,
Yes.
and Senator Avard, yes. We'll see you all